Big hand of applause. They've done a marvellous job. And it's amazing looking out and seeing hundreds of young women, emerging women, and those that have already set the path for us. It's incredible to have us all in one room. And of course, please, a round of applause for the army of volunteers, supporters, school students, teachers, councils, suppliers, and you. You are the reason this event is being held. Big round of applause for yourself. While we are clapping and celebrating, we should also mention quickly my favourite sponsors, and the many suppliers who jumped in at the last moment to provide specialty produce. Let's thank Brown Brothers, the Federal Group, Petuna, Anvers, Tas Food, Young's Veggie Shed, and Hellier's Road Distillery. Tonight is also being live broadcast on the AMWU YouTube channel for your later reference, and I'm hoping they're getting my good side, which of course ensures the responsible serving of alcohol tonight as well, because it's all on record. Just ignore the cameras though, ladies, as the focus is on the whole event, not just the individual speakers and table hosts. Try not to get too attached though to your table host, as they will move on during dinner. So much has happened in the last 2 days in kitchens and venues across the northwest, from Smithton to Latrobe. And I quote Sherilyn Walters from Smithton High: "Students discovered options they had not considered before." Says it all nicely as a major part of this event. So we should all be very proud we live in the north of Tasmania, because it truly does offer us all the opportunity to go beyond our limits. But the opportunity to be safe, healthy and secure must be a goal for all of us. And unfortunately, 1 woman a week in Australia is killed due to family violence, still today. Likewise, we should never forget the name of Michaela Dunn, who made headlines this week for all the wrong reasons. But ladies, to get the night started, let us pause for a moment and reflect that we are still and always have been on Palawa land, and we acknowledge the past, present and emerging leaders and custodians of the land we stand on today. Recently, you would have read that Tasmania's leading newspaper reported the inspirational approach to life and health that our first guest has openly and candidly shared with Tasmanians. We were so pleased to read that a diagnosis with cancer had recently been overcome. Please welcome to the stage the Governor of Tasmania, Professor Kate Warner.
Thank you so much, Megan. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me to this AMWU Women's Forum. Can I also begin by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we stand, the Palawa people, and to acknowledge the contemporary Tasmanian Aboriginal community who have survived invasion and dispossession, and yet who continue to maintain their identity, their culture, and their Indigenous rights. So it really is such a great pleasure to be here again, to be here at this Women's Forum, and to talk to you about a topic that is really close to my heart, which is opening up opportunities for young women and women generally through further education or work choices, particularly in male-dominated professions and industries. And as Tasmania's first female governor, it is probably natural that gender equality and empowering women is something that I'm very keen to support. So since the time that I left school, there have been many advances in gender equity and in education and employment. I have to say that in 1966, which is a very long time ago, which was my first year at university, only a quarter of university students were female, and they were mainly in the arts faculty. Very few in science, none in engineering, and a mere handful in law, which is where I studied. There were very few female academics, none in law, and there were no female professors at the university. After a couple of years, there was one, and she happened to be a nun, which I think says something. Gender segregation in academic disciplines was really the norm in those days. And when I was at school, law and medicine were still very much male-dominated professions. When I finished my law degree, in Tasmania there were very few female practitioners, no female magistrates, no female judges, and no female partners in law firms. So why did I decide to go to university and study law? Well, I have to say that my parents strongly encouraged me to go to university. My mother, for one, had really resented the fact that she hadn't had that opportunity, so she was very keen for her only daughter to have as much opportunities in education as her sons. My father had had that opportunity to go to university, and he was very insistent that I have a professional education that would allow me to be financially independent. So my dad wanted me to be a physiotherapist. So I studied the prerequisite subjects for that in those days, which physics and biology. But I then decided that a health-related career wasn't really something that I wanted. My academic strengths were much more attuned to arts and humanities than science, and I decided that I would give law a go. I have to say that going to the law school was very daunting at first. My year was the first year to have more than one female enrolled. And I can still remember looking in awe at the second year students and wondering if I would ever make it into second year. So the decision to study law proved to be an important one for me. I don't think I particularly had a lot of self-confidence, but I've always been very determined, as my husband Dick will probably tell you. And I had a lot of parental encouragement to study. So in 1970, I graduated with an honours degree, and that proved to be important later on in terms of having an academic career. And after completing my articles, I was admitted to practice. In 1971, Dick and I married, and we travelled overseas on a sort of working holiday. And I can well remember working on a lateral picker, hop picking in Kent, which was a machine in a machinery shed, and it was an awful job, and I thought, thank goodness I don't have to do this job for the rest of my life. So when we came back, I again worked for a while as a judge's associate in the courts and started doing some part-time tutoring at the university. Then I discovered I was pregnant with my first baby, and the offer of a job that I had in a legal firm completely evaporated. In those days, there was no maternity leave, there was no flexibility, no fractional work, nothing like that. Fortunately, my casual tutoring continued, and I can remember being extremely naive at the hospital and actually taking some tutorial papers to the labour ward. Somehow thinking that I would have time to mark these in between contractions, and that it might be a good idea to get them done before the baby was born. Anyway, needless to say, I didn't get any marking done in the labour ward. So then 2 years later, with another baby, I enrolled in a research higher degree, which is something you really needed to do if you wanted an academic career, and continued with casual tutoring. And this became lecturing when I graduated with that higher degree in 1978. So lecturing to large classes at the university was at first really daunting. And as an academic, particularly in those days, you were just thrown in at the deep end. You had no training at all in teaching. It was just assumed that it was something you'd be able to do. And it took me a long time to actually get comfortable with it. Well, when our second daughter, Meg, was at school in 1981, I was at last offered a full-time lecturing position teaching criminal law and criminology. And at last, I was earning enough to pay income tax. Before that, I didn't even reach the threshold. And I have to say that this early career path on very little pay wouldn't have been possible without the support of my partner, Dick. Well, I continued working as a lecturer and my research career began to take off. I wasn't the first female lecturer at the law school, but at the time I was the only one. And this had its disadvantages. I remember always being expected to take the minutes at staff meetings, which was a little bit annoying. But I suppose I was the most junior academic. Then I think a highlight a few years later was being invited to speak at my first international conference in Cambridge in the UK and being paid to go there and stay in a Cambridge college. So that was pretty exciting. And then in the next year, I published my first book. So as an academic at university, you are expected to have a research role, so to write and publish, as well as do your teaching. Well, I gradually gained in confidence, particularly I think on the teaching side of things, and progressed up the academic scale, became the first female Dean of Law at the law school, served as head of school from 1995 until 1997. And then in 1996, I was made a full professor, and I have to say that was pretty exciting. I was the first female professor in the law school as well. And then I became director of the Tasmanian Law Reform Institute in 2001, and I held that position, teaching at the law school, researching and being director of the Law Reform Institute till I was appointed as governor at the end of 2014. So today, more than half of our law students are female, and at least half of solicitors in Australia are female. So law is no longer a male-dominated profession, although it remains so at the bar, people who are practising as barristers, and also on the bench, people who are magistrates and judges. And of course, there are many occupations that continue to be male-dominated: engineering, construction, mining, manufacturing, and electrical trades. And interestingly, those industries tend to be better paid than the female-dominated caring professions, for example. So my message to you young women here this evening is to do take the plunge into male-dominated occupations if that is where you would like to work. Don't ignore that tiny tremulous voice inside you that says, maybe this is the job you want to do. Listen to it and give it a good go, even if it seems audacious. I think we need to continually challenge the rigid gender role stereotypes, which view women as more suited to work in the caring and nurturing professions, and men more suited to technical work. I think more men in the caring professions is also likely to improve the pay conditions in those caring professions. So we need to have more men in teaching, nursing, childcare and aged care. We need more women engineers, electricians and welders, and more women in mining. So 16% of employees in mining are female, and only 4.5% are technicians in the mining industry, and these are well-paid jobs. I know money isn't everything, but certainly it is a help. And I always feel really disappointed when I hear that when women retire, on average, they have half the superannuation balances of men. So that means that many older women are destined to live in poverty, particularly if they have a marriage breakup. So, as my father taught me all those years ago, financial independence for women is really important, and the way to start is to get a good education. So I encourage you all to do that. So thanks so much for listening to me, and I'm really looking forward to talking to many of you in the networking session. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It was a fabulous start and address for this evening, and it really highlights what we're all here about, which is to learn from each other's experience and take those beyond this room. And to hear about the challenges that you faced and other women before us and the path that you have forged to make our lives a little bit easier, and we will continue to forge, as we heard from Her Excellency, that there's a lot of work still to be done, but we'll get there, particularly with events like this when we come together. It's going to be hard to beat us. I also learned that I need to rethink my plans to edit the paper during contractions next month, so noted. I'm now going to leave you alone for a little bit. We're going to enjoy some dinner, enjoy some fellowship, and we'll return soon to hear from some amazing speakers.
Hi everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic dinner. I'm really sorry I can't be there, but what better way to talk to a bunch of young women than through an iPhone message, so thanks for that. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the choices I've made in my study, career and work to see if that can help you as you think about what you're going to do. At school, I was more an academic kid. I wasn't very sporty. I did love art, but I was a really strong maths, science student. So when it came to uni, I chose to do law. Why do you think I chose that? I chose law because at that point where I was, the smart girls did law or medicine, and I didn't like blood. But when I look back and I think about me being a maths science student, I wonder why I didn't do science or engineering. And I know you'll have heard from Lisa Harvey-Smith today. How amazing to think of what I could have done if I'd made a different choice. But I didn't, and I became a lawyer, but particularly I became interested in employment law, and I ran a whole lot of cases on discrimination against women. And that's how I ended up in my role as Sex Discrimination Commissioner. And you, as young women, might wonder why or how is discrimination experienced by Australian women today? You, I hope, haven't experienced much discrimination to date. And that's good because in Australia, women are educated really well. We are ranked number 1 in the world for educating women and girls, and that is a fantastic achievement and a wonderful thing about this country. But in my role, I know there's 3 particular areas that Australian women do more poorly than men. Firstly, violence against women. Australian women experience high rates of violence, family violence, sexual violence, online abuse, and also sexual harassment at work. They also struggle to hold leadership roles, although it's fantastic that tonight the Governor, Kate Warner, is there at the event, and that is a fantastic achievement and something to be really proud of for Tasmania. And women also struggle on their economic security over their lifetime. The jobs they take tend to earn less. They tend to have to do more unpaid work, looking after children and family. And by the end of their life, they're often left with less money than their male counterparts. So why is that relevant to you? As you choose your courses, I really want you to keep this in mind, that a lot of that discrimination still happens because people still hold stereotyped views about what women and men do and what roles they have at work and at home. So what that might mean is your family or teachers might be suggesting you might like to be a teacher or a nurse rather than encouraging you towards engineering or science or policing, for example, or mining jobs. I want you to really think about those things because the most important thing is that you find for you what you will do is something that will make you happy, that you are good at and that you love to do, and be aware that some of those decisions mean you'll have to make scary decisions. But be brave and try and follow your heart in what you want to do, and be aware of stereotypes as you go through it, just in case people are trying to encourage you not to do something because it might be harder for women. Don't worry, if you want to do it, you can. And good luck. Thanks.
And I am so pleased to announce that we have Shannon Martinez here from Smith & Daughters in Fitzroy in Melbourne. And
my
we're
new
so
favourite human being.
Oh, we're in love with each other, so it's
my
just brilliant.
God. Yeah.
Absolutely.
My new Tassie mum.
New besties.
Yeah.
So anyway, Shannon, how's it been? You've been up at Helier College today.
Yeah. Oh, it's been amazing. The girls have been super receptive. It's been really exciting to be able to bring what I do up in Melbourne down here, and not just focus maybe so much on your bigger cities like Hobart, but to come more in and show these girls that wouldn't normally have the opportunity, sort of what we do and how we work, and just here to inspire them and give them some new ideas, and sort of give them a little bit of direction and show them that working's actually super fun and it's not all totally serious.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love it.
Oh, love you.
And I know the girls said to me that she rocks. They thought it was so cool to have someone like Shannon that they really resonate with, they really can relate to, and I think that's very important when we're trying to get young people to really understand what this is all about.
That's right.
Thank you, Shannon.
My
We
pleasure.
love having you here.
Thank you.
We can't wait to have you here more.
Oh, anytime, babes.
Kisses. Thank you. Hi guys, we've got Lonsweeta here. You're living here in Burnie? Yes, I am. Excellent. So Lonsweeta's come along, she just heard about it and wanted to know all about it. So Lonsweeta, could you tell me what encouraged you to come here tonight?
Well, I'm passionate about empowering women
Excellent.
and just enriching women's lives. So every time I have an opportunity to go to women's meetings or anything to do with women, I'm in.
Girl power.
Yeah.
Excellent. Look, we really, really love the fact that you came along tonight. We hope that you understand that this is the first time we've had it on the Northwest Coast.
Okay.
So we hope to have it back here again sometime too. Having it here in Burnie in 2019 is awesome,
Yep.
and we love having you here. So we hope you get a lot out of all the wonderful speakers tonight.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to tonight. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Cheers.
By the way, a point of correction, I'm not from Burnie, I'm
Okay.
from Somerset.
Even better. Well done.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here and looking forward to tonight.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, we have Georgie Hutchinson, who is a wonderful representative from Zonta in Devonport, and we're so proud that the Zonta ladies are here tonight. That's such a wonderful, empowering women's group that we love so much. So Georgie, what brought you here tonight?
Well, I saw it advertised and I thought, here's an opportunity for, that's being provided for empowering young women.
Perfect.
And that's what Zonta is all about. So we thought, no, we needed to be here and be networking and communicating with some of these girls. And also we've met up with lots of people. For example, there was a lady from here who's from Canberra as one of your facilitators. She's just joined Zonta in Canberra.
That's fabulous.
There's a lady over here from who's a facilitator. She's works at the university in Tasmania in Launceston. And she wants to join Zonta in Launceston because she's connected with the Migrant Resource Centre. So it's that networking which and if we can get that happening, then we're able to empower more women.
I totally agree. And I love what Zonta do. They are just the most amazing group of women. So I'm very proud of the fact that you ladies chose to come here tonight for 2019 Burnie AMWU Women's Forum. Thanks, Georgie.
Thanks, Alison.
Thanks,
Okay,
darling.
cheers.
Bye. We have Senior Constable Emily Demler here. We're so pleased that our wonderful constables and seniors come along, tell us what's going on, and we just love the fact that the police force are being powerful women doing what they do. We'd just like to find out, why did you decide to come tonight?
I thought it was a really great chance to meet a lot of other professional women and a lot of women outside of my comfort zone. So sometimes us police officers, we kind of stick together and we don't like to get outside of that bubble, and I thought, this is a great chance for me to get out and find other professional women and find out what they do and what's made them successful.
And I think, Emily, you don't get me wrong too, it's great for others to sit and talk to you and find out the real people behind the force, what you do and who you really are, and understand that as well. I think that's a bonus for you guys as well. Do you think that too?
It is good. Sometimes a lot of people just see the uniform and they don't see us as humans. So it breaks down a lot of barriers when people see us outside of work and we're not in, especially tonight, not in a uniform. And
looking glamorous.
Thank you. And they get to see what we're like and actually chat to us about what we do.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much. We're really, really pleased that you guys came along, and we're really grateful. Thank you
very much. Thank you. See ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our second guest speaker for tonight. She was born in Germany, where she studied business economics in Germany and graduated with a master's degree. Worked as the head accountant for VW and the Audi dealership with 5 branches, and as project controller in a gas and steam power plant, all in Germany. She migrated to Australia in April 2013 and worked as a management accountant for Wesfarmers Resources, and then as a financial controller for Majura Tea Estates. She moved to the beautiful state of Tasmania in March 2018 and now works as financial controller, which is second to the finance director for Biomar. Welcome from Biomar, Bianca Dubber.
Hello everybody, thanks for having me. I hope my accent is not too strong, and if I say something in the wrong way, my excuse is I'm from Germany. So as I was already introduced, I finished school in Germany with the equivalent to year 12 to Australia, and then I decided I had enough of school, learning, studying, tests, exams, whatever else. And I went to do an apprenticeship, which is quite common in Germany. Like for every job, trade, whatever you want to do, if it's in the office or if it's a trade, you have to have an apprenticeship. So I did an apprenticeship with a German bank, similar to the big 4 banks in Australia. It's called Deutsche Bank. I was there for 2 years. In Germany, we have a mixture of you go to school 2 days a week and 3 days a week you are in the actual, wherever you work in the company, and you learn the trade and also the background, the office, in my case, the bank background. 2 years after that, I was like, oh, I'm just 20 years old. Maybe I don't want to work the next 47 years of my life just in the bank. So I decided to go to university. I went to university and graduated with a master in business economics with a focus in finance and marketing. And during all my studies, I always kept working, so I didn't lose touch. It was sort of internships, apprenticeships, whatever I could get. I just tried to broaden my horizon as much as I could, and in all honesty, I needed the money. I was doing horse riding all my life, and I wanted to have my own horse. I wanted to have a car. I wanted to have a flat. So, well, just studying alone didn't do the trick. So I stayed always in the workforce, one way or the other. During my studies, I came to Australia for the very first time. I did an internship in Sydney for a company that actually gave internships to other people. So I was basically responsible for them, to welcome them into Australia, to say, okay, I'm here, I hold your hand, I help you out if you have a problem. So that was the first time I came to beautiful Australia. I loved the country. After my internship, I travelled for another couple of months, mainly on the mainland. I was in Tasmania for about 3 days back then. Loved it, but went back to the mainland, stayed for another 4 or 5 weeks around the East Coast area, as everyone does, down from Cairns to Sydney, the usual trip, I suppose, and flew back to Germany, finished my studies and started working. But never really forgot, I loved Australia. I always had in the back of my mind, I want to come back one way or the other. So I tried to get my English up to speed, always tried to read books in English, watch movies in English, and everyone thought I was crazy because, in Germany you speak German, so why would you go through that effort and do all this? And I was like, yeah, I just want to do it. We'll see what happens, and it doesn't hurt. So when I finished uni, I was lucky enough, as I mentioned before, I was horse riding since I was 7 years old, and went up to European championships and German championships, and also always gave lessons for kids during that time. So I grew up taking responsibility for the horse, and also learning to teach others and to teach people or kids in that case, or beginners how to ride. And I was lucky enough, one of the kids that I was teaching, her father owned a car dealership and said, you finished your uni, you want to work for me? I'm like, yeah, sounds good, I'll do that. So I was lucky enough to get in there, and I sort of never looked back. I ended up, although I had a degree in finance and marketing, I sort of ended up on the finance side of things. And I stayed in this job for about 2.5 years, learned a lot during that time, learned also to fall down and pick myself back up, because there were things, that weren't as they said at uni it was. Life is sometimes a bit different than what they tell you in uni. But, I guess you just learn and pick yourself up and go forward. And I never really competed with my male colleagues. I guess business economics is, female and male is probably in the same proportion. It's not like it's only men or it's only women in that field. It's fairly mixed. And I never even thought about it. I still believe strongly that when you're good, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You just do what you want and go your way. And if it's not always straight, you find a way to go with a detour, but you have something in your mind and you just get there, I suppose. Anyways, after 2.5 years in that job, I decided I want something new, and I ended up in a gas and steam power plant, which is actually a male domain. There were lots of engineers, and it was run by a very small group of people. It was a greenfield project. It was newly built, so nothing was in place. There were no systems, no structures. It was like, that's what it has to be. Find a way, make it happen. And worked in a team. And I guess, as I said before, if you're confident in what you're doing, and if you're willing to admit, I made a mistake, or I don't know this, can you please help me? You find a way to make it happen, and you just can't just say, I'm a woman, I can't do it, or I'm not strong enough, or I don't know. You just ask the question and ask for help, and it doesn't matter. Usually, if you work in a good company, you get the help you need, I suppose. I travelled during that time while I was working in the gas and steam power plant. I travelled a couple more times to Australia. On the second trip, I met my now husband in the most unlikely spot in the backpacker in Airlie Beach. Who would have thought that? Anyways, it worked out well for us, and he came over to Germany, visited me, and we decided we want to give it a go. Where do we want to live? Obviously, Australia was the choice. So I quit my job. I had a 6-month period of notice to give, so I had to stay for 6 months in Germany after I already said I'm leaving my job. I had a handover and then came to Australia. Again, everything was new. I went to McDonald's. I thought I can't even order a hamburger. Everything was just overwhelming, and I wasn't allowed to work when I first came, because I was on first on a tourist visa, and then we applied for the partner visa, but before that came through, I wasn't allowed to work. My husband was away. I was in a foreign country, no family, no one there to have a shoulder to cry on, but I found everyone was very helpful. Again, I asked for help when I needed it. I said, look, I'm new. I don't know all the words, as I just said before. If I mix it up, my excuses. I'm from Germany. I don't know all the words, but that seems to work. Anyways, I got the visa that came through, and I was allowed to start work. And I had a lot of setbacks. I had a uni degree, I had a master's degree, and people kept telling me, "Oh, you're from Germany, you can't work here." I was like, well, I work in my case in finance. 1 and 1 is 2. It doesn't matter if you're in Australia, if you're in Germany, if you're in Denmark, if you're wherever, it's always the same. So why not giving me a chance? And they said, no, we can't, we just don't know, and it's too risky. Anyways, West Farmers Resources in Brisbane said, well, we don't care, we're a big enough company, we give it a go. So I was lucky enough to get my foot in the door. And then we lived on the Gold Coast, and it was a couple of hours drive each way to go to Brisbane. I did it for 10 months, and then I had enough because I said, I don't have a life anymore. I was working 10 hours a day with 4 hours traveling. It just was getting really, really hard. And I applied for a job with Maturity Estates, which is a small company in northern New South Wales. And because now I could provide background, because I worked in Australia, and now finally people believed 1 and 1 is 2, no matter which country you're in. I found a job with Maturity Estates, and I loved it there. It was beautiful. We were just on the southern end of the Gold Coast, but we decided, my husband and I, we want to have a bit more land, a bit more freedom, a bit more, not as busy as the Gold Coast. So we did a leap of faith. We sold our house, came to Tasmania, and haven't looked back yet. Like, we really love it here. The 4 seasons, the whole thing. Everyone said we are crazy. It's cold, it's freezing, it's raining all the time. And well, we are here now for a bit more than a year, and I can't say any of that was true. Yes, there's a little bit of rain in July and August, I admit that, but now it's beautiful. Anyways, after that, I applied for a job with Biomar. I don't know if any of you are aware, or how many of you are aware of Biomar. We are building a new factory in Wesley Bay. It's for fish feed, for salmon, especially for tuna, tassel and huon are our customers, or hopefully soon to be, because we don't have the factory up and running yet. It's a construction site at the moment. We're a really small company as yet, but aiming to be 55 people, or have 55 people employed by the end of next year. We are 16 currently, and our headquarters is in Denmark, and we are at the moment hung up at in Scotland with the UK. But it's a great team. It's really good. Another greenfield project, or not greenfield, Biomar is established worldwide, but here in Australia it's brand new. And it's just great to see the team growing. Again, it's another challenge. We have different time zones. I have to speak to Europe quite often, and then you have to adjust your life. That sometimes you work in the evenings or late nights, but therefore Biomar is really flexible and says, okay, you can have a day off or half a day off, and you adjust your life that way. So I think during all my time working and studying, writing in a competitive way, I never really thought about why I shouldn't do things. I just did them, and people told me, oh, you can't migrate to Australia, you can't do this, you can't work here because 1 and 1 is not 2 here, and I just thought, well, why not? And I never really thought about, oh, I'm a woman, I should step back, or I shouldn't do this or whatever. I just did what I think was right, or what I wanted to do, and I had an aim, and I just went for it, and not in the way that I was just pushing everyone else aside and just was ruthless in a way. I just found my way to get where I wanted to be, even if it meant a bit of a setback, or not always success, or not always a straight way. And I think what helped me a lot was also having a passion with horses. Just having learned from an early age on, you have to have responsibility. You can't just drop things. A horse is not a football or a tennis ball or a gym or whatever. It's something you have to care for, and I think that helped me a lot during all my life. Something to fall back on when stuff doesn't go the way it's, well, was supposed to be. I think, having a passion, having a hobby that builds you up, and where you learn, you fail and you just do it again, and next time it works out, is also something that during all my working life or uni life was something, if it didn't work out straight away, well, it worked out the next day. So I think, overall, I think the aim is to just have a goal and go for it, and even if you don't get there straight, do a detour and keep in mind what you want to do, what makes you happy, and I guess you get there. So that's me in a nutshell.
That was wonderful, Bianca, and we understood every single word. Promise. We are now going to be rotating our table hosts. So I'm sorry, guys. wasn't my choice. I think some of the staff may be helping direct this move, because all I know is that we are moving table hosts. So I will leave you to it. Hopefully we'll get some direction and we can go from there. Astrophysicist Professor Lisa Harvey-Smith is signing books at the back of the room. You will hear from her later this evening, so if you don't get the book already, I promise you will be lining up at the end of the evening. And we also do have soft drink at the bar there for the students in the room. So, our third guest speaker for the evening. So you may have all watched My Kitchen Rules on the silver screen and know she's one of Australia's leading chefs working across the globe. She's an unlikely candidate to be the poster girl for plant-based dining, but she is, and she's unstoppable. Shannon is well and truly underway in her mission to change the world, the way the world perceives plant-based dining, and changing the way people eat. Please welcome Shannon Martinez.
Sorry, that was kind of a longer walk than I expected. Also, just so you know, I'm not a speech writer, so apologies for that. I just prefer to kind of chat to everybody. I still find it really weird when anyone cares about my story. It's just, to me, just a bit mind-blowing, because all I do is cook food for a living, but apparently that's a thing that people want to hear about, so I'm going to talk about that. Firstly, I guess because this is a forum about empowering women and getting into industries that are male-led, I get asked the question all the time about what it's like to be a woman in a male-dominated industry. I don't know what it's like to be a man in a male-dominated industry, so I can't answer that. But what I do know is I haven't really experienced too many problems. I started cooking professionally at the age of 15, so that would be 96 now. I went to Methodist Ladies College in Melbourne, suspended 3 times for inappropriate uniform and hair colours. And last year they invited me back for a careers talk, which was the best. I wasn't going to go, but I decided to go so I could tell all the girls that were like myself in high school to continue to be like themselves in high school, because no matter what their parents or their teachers told them, they could still do cool shit. And me, as I'm talking, the teachers are like, shut up. The parents are like, stop. And the kids, they loved it, of course. So, that was one of those little tiny victories for the good guy. Sorry, I'm just pull up my dot points on my phone. So when we talk about men and women in industries, obviously food and cooking is a heavily male-dominated industry, but only when I was younger really was that an issue for me. I think when I was 15, there was plenty of ass grabbing and sexual harassment to a certain point, but as I got older and now, the men in my industry are my biggest advocates and push me and support me more than anyone else. And what's been really interesting, which I'm really trying to stop within my own business, is women in my industry are the ones that seem to be the most defensive. And I'm not sure whether that is because we've had to fight harder to get to where we are. So when we get our positions, we kind of fight people off, maybe, perhaps. But I don't have this whole thing with men sort of holding me back. They really are the ones that are championing me, and whenever they have events, they're putting my names forward and all these things. So that's not an issue for me in what I do. But apparently we're going to hear my story about what I do. So at 4 years old, my mother put a violin in my hands and I became a classical violinist, and I was in the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and music became a massive part of my life. And then at age 12, I decided that cooking was what I wanted to do. Silly, I guess in a way, my mother, as a single mum, saved up all her money and sold all her jewellery. And I'm not sure if many of you guys are European, but when you have European families and you have babies, your husband gives you presents and jewellery for having a child. So mum sold all her jewellery to send me to this private school. And I just became a chef anyway, so it was kind of pointless. But so from 12, I knew I wanted to cook, and so mum bought me my first big box, and I had my first wooden spoon and my first frying pan and my pot and a cookbook and all these things. And so in year 10, when you do that work placement, work experience thing, I got a job at the Sofitel Hotel, and that was in the banquets kitchen. So we used to cook for 1,200 people twice a day. I was 2 of 54 men in a kitchen, and I was 15 years old. So that's the time where I had my ass grabbed a bit. It's a long time ago, but that was the only point. But that was a really, really interesting time for me to become the person that I am today at 15 years old, as a girl in a kitchen full of hardcore men. If you can push through that and continue to love the job that you do, then, and so I think that was at the point for me where I realised that was exactly what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So once the work experience ended, I decided to continue to work there for free, and so I would go to school from 8:30 until 3:30 and then catch a train into the city and work at the Sofitel until 9:30, 10 at night, and my poor mother used to have to come and pick me up, bring me home, and I'd get back up for school the next morning and go to school. And that's sort of how I ran for a little while. So I've always sort of been the sort of person that can't stop and has to keep moving and keep working. My first proper cooking job was at Stephanie Alexander's restaurant in Melbourne, Richmond Hill Larder. And as an angsty teenage goth kid, I decided that I was better than everybody else and better than school. And I knew more than everybody, of course. And I quit my apprenticeship and married a professional skateboarder. And this is where my career kind of detoured for a little bit. And that made for 9 wild and exciting years where I became the tour cook, as they gave me a title, it wasn't really, for Vans and Volcom. And I toured the world with my ex-husband and the skateboarding people. I guess you could call them people. And in the meantime, I was in a band, and it was a goth industrial band, and I got on the Tony Hawk Project Games, and my music is on the games, and I did the Vans Warped Tour in America. But the whole time I was playing, I was missing cooking, and I was missing having a knife in my hand, and that was the point where I went up to the catering company, and I just said to them, is there any way I could just cook with you guys? And so I just started cooking with the catering team for free. And I remember having this conversation with my mother, and she said, what's the first thing you're thinking about when you wake up, and the last thing you think about when you go to bed? Is it music or food? And I said, it's food. And she goes, well, there's your answer. What more do I need to tell you? And so that was the point where I put the bass guitar down and picked up the knife permanently, I guess. I mean, I still miss music, and I still play violin at home and still play bass at home, but food is what I do. So fast forward a little bit, I got a divorce, obviously, because that was stupid. And then decided to open a restaurant with my divorce settlement. It wasn't a good one, I tell you. I was still using IKEA furniture, but that's cool. You know, I could have done better, but that's all right. So restaurants, blah, blah, blah. Smith & Daughters comes about. I had been cooking vegan food for a long time. If any of you don't know, I own vegan restaurants, but I'm actually a meat eater, sort of. And that in itself causes many issues, including death threats and paint bombing on my restaurant. But, you know, that's another story for another day. So the restaurant went crazy, bigger than I ever could have expected. Within the first year, I opened Smith & Deli. So, you know, when I think about it now, opening a second business before the first one turns one is so stupid. So luckily for me, that worked out well. Totally self-funded. I mean, when I say IKEA furniture, I was spending nights sanding off IKEA logos so no one would know that they were sitting on IKEA furniture. You know, doing a little bit of DIY. Like, I'm not a craft girl, but I was getting crafty at my restaurant. I mean, if you go there today, you're still sitting on IKEA furniture, just so you know. So the restaurant happened, then the deli happened, then I got my first book deal, which was crazy. And to me, having always been into food, getting offered a cookbook, to me, is the ultimate, right? Like, a show is a show, a restaurant is a restaurant, but books are forever. And that first book contract blew my mind. And, you know, I have every copy of Gourmet Traveller still, every copy of Delicious magazine still. So that was just the highlight for me. And then the second book got offered to us, and we wrote a book about the deli, and I've just signed on for 2 more books now as well, which was last week, and they've given me till November 2nd to finish the next one, and I haven't started that yet, so that'll be interesting. But that's going to be good. I promise it won't be a crappy book, it'll be fun. And then My Kitchen Rules happened, and that was a point in my life where I never expected a Channel 7 mainstream TV show to put on a blue-haired tattooed girl as a food judge, but that happened. And then becoming a permanent writer for Delicious magazine, that happened, you know, and this is all these incredible things that I always looked up to when I was younger, happening to a weirdo misfit kid like me that was told they were going to be nothing. So, you know, I don't want to talk about men and women in our industries. I want to talk about, you know, being told maybe that you're not going to be able to do what you think you're going to do. Like, everyone told me that I would have to change the way I looked, change the way I spoke, be more educated. Thank you, 2 minutes. And I didn't. And I still got to where I am today. So don't let anyone tell you to change. Don't let anyone say that you need to look or act a certain way to do anything, because that's bullshit. And just be yourself, because the minute I've ever tried to do anything but that, I've just looked like a fake and a fraud. And I mean, you know, I'm standing here without having written a speech, and if I'd written a speech, I can tell you right now, it would have been a lot different to this. So, you know, just do your thing. And that's probably the most important thing I could tell you. That's it, thank you.
I've been hearing from some Helier College students who've been lucky enough to spend the past 2 days with Shannon. They're really excited to hear from her this evening, and I can tell why now after hearing that. So, terrific. Thank you so much. Please, big round of applause for Shannon. We are going to take a 15-minute break, enough time to do some mingling, a bit more networking, refill the glasses, meet some new people, and then when we come back, we'll have another fantastic guest speaker, I promise.
Giovanna and I go way back.
Yes, we do. We actually do, don't we?
We are mates. We used to, get ready for this, model together in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I think when perms were really big as well, and scrunchies, even though they're back in now, but scrunchies were in really big then, weren't they?
So yeah. True.
And we were smoking hot too.
We are deputy mayors together. I'm so proud of that. So I'd just like to know, G,
yeah,
what do you think of tonight?
Oh, look, I'm loving tonight. Actually, the guest speaker we just had, Shannon Martinez, she such an inspiring young lady for just 26 years of age to have done the things that she's done already in that short time. I'm really inspired and I'm 50, so what she's done has been incredible. So an amazing turnout as well.
Yeah, I love Shannon too. She's my new bestie. What do you think it's going to do for the young girls that we've got here tonight?
Yeah, look, I think, and there's a couple of young girls that I work with in school that are here tonight as well. They've come along with their teachers and stuff, and I just think it's going to inspire them.
Yes.
I think it's going to give them a little bit of hope, give them a few new goals that they might set for themselves. And I think more importantly, from what Shannon just said, not to worry about what they look like or what they may dress like or what people may think of them.
Be themselves.
But to be themselves, yeah.
Which we are.
Which we are, totally.
We are perfect examples of that.
We are.
Done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two beautiful young ladies here. We have, let me get this right, Maya
Yep.
and Mia.
Yep.
Awesome. I think that's brilliant. So girls, what I want to know from you is what are you getting out of being here and what kind of experience it is for you here tonight? Your turn first. What do you think?
It's good.
Do you like the speakers?
Yeah. They're really inspiring.
Now, where are you from?
Smithton.
And what school do you go to?
Smithton High.
You got to give it a plug. Do you like, what year are you in?
9.
Yeah, and what are your favourite subjects at school at the moment? You don't have any?
Anything but maths.
Anything but maths. Oh, I agree with that one. That's excellent. And what, if you've got any kind of aspirations of what you want to do in your future, have you got any at the moment? Doesn't matter if you don't, but if you do, tell me.
Not really.
That's cool. That's okay. That's what we're trying to tell you tonight. Your turn. So what year are you in?
Year 9.
At Smithton High?
Yep.
All right. So do you have favourite subjects at school at the moment?
Yeah, paddock to plate and Project O.
So tell me about Project O.
It's like a subject for young, like, women to gain confidence and, like, get out and do things in the community. Yeah.
And do you like being in part of that group?
Yeah, it's helped me gain, like, lots of confidence.
That's a great thing, isn't it? Are you part of Project O as well?
Yeah.
And do you like that?
Yeah, it's really fun.
And do you like being part of a nice group? Is it mostly girls in Project O or is it boys as well?
All girls.
All girls? Do you think girls rock?
Yep.
Do you think girls rock?
Yeah.
I think girls rock. I want to say thank you to Maya and Mia from Smithton High School for Burnie 2019. Cheers, girls.
Bye. See ya.
So nice to see the boys here amongst the women showing support. Steve, what do you think you're getting out of here tonight?
I think this is showing that how innovative the union movement is, that it's actually engaging young people and particularly women and bringing them on board. The old boys club of just having blokes is gone and you're catering for a market that isn't really being looked after. So I applaud what you guys are doing.
Thank you. I think it's amazing for the organisers here to have such a successful field. We've got like 330 people in the room. It's amazing. John, so glad that you came all the way up from Hobart to visit us here. What do you think about this event and how proud you must be of this event now it's in its 3rd year?
Yeah, very proud. I've got to say it's great to be up here on the Northwest Coast. It's fantastic also having the focus on trade training, vocational training, and getting women into those trades. You know, what we've seen, we've done research over the years, and it shows that somebody going into a trade, if you compare somebody going into a trade and somebody doing a degree in the university, it takes about 20 years for the person who's doing the university degree to catch up with the person that's getting a trade.
And they're earning money already too.
And that's part of the issue. They are earning money straight away instead of just studying. So we're so happy to be up here. It's a lovely part of Tasmania, a lovely part of Australia.
Oh, you did that well with the Burnie Mayor here.
Well, as I say, it is. It's always great to be up here, and it's great to have so many, great young women who are looking for their future and looking for something to do. and a trade is a wonderful opportunity for them.
I think the lovely thing is too to know that we've got people from Smithton here, young students from Smithton High, we've got Parklands, we've got a range, Don College, Hellier College, we've got a range of people up and down the Northwest Coast, students that have come here to share the love, I suppose, with everybody as well, and to know what's ahead for them in the future is that we're trying to show them that anything is possible. Do you agree with that, Steve?
Totally agree. I've always believed that particularly in small regional areas you can virtually do anything you like. The risk is smaller. The capacity to do bigger things starts off from little places like this.
Because your wife is a pretty successful businesswoman in her own right, isn't she?
Well, it's interesting. She moved from Collins Street in Melbourne as a hairdresser to Burnie.
Burnie?
She's been here for 30 years and it's good. She's loves her clientele, loves her job. I think she loves her job more than she loves me, but
that's fair enough.
I love mine as well. So.
And she's in the Paris end of Burnie, isn't she?
That's it, the Wilmot, top end of Wilmot Street.
There you go. That's beautiful. Look, I just want to say thank you both for being here tonight. It's very important, I think, for women of our calibre as well as the young women to know that men are here supporting them. We've got a MC about to come up and talk, so I'll give that a bit of a cut now. But thank you very much for both being here.
Thanks for having us here.
Right.
Cheers.
As you've witnessed already, tonight we have a mix of speakers as both household names and some who ignore the gender gap and charge on as successes in their male-dominated fields. Our next guest speaker is indeed one of those people. She has a 30-year career in construction and business development, evolving from an interest in design combined with the experience gained with the love of working on site. She's a board member with Tasmanian Building and Construction Industry Training Board and Master Builders Australia. She's passionate about encouraging career opportunities and training programs to empower resourceful and adaptable individuals. As a Master Builders Australia Ambassador for Women in Construction, she emphasises the importance of the inclusion of women in roles throughout the construction industry. Hence her driving force with the Try a Trade sessions yesterday. Please welcome Co-Director of MeadCon in Sprayton, Vonette Mead.
I was privileged to have participated in the forum, and we shared our experiences of the construction industry yesterday. And I suppose I want to tell you a little bit about the construction industry because it seems that quite a few people don't have a lot of knowledge in our area. In Australia, the construction industry is the largest private sector employer of full-time workers. And at the moment, we are in really interesting times, and those of you that are in the Northwest Coast will start to hear about a lot of work that's in our pipeline, as well as in the rest of the state, which is really exciting. With emerging technologies and environmental responsibilities combined with our ingrained desire to pass on craftsman skills and appreciation for heritage values, the construction industry is probably one that we want more ladies to become part of. I love the opportunity to promote the importance of increasing female participation in our industry. And we commenced the climb for gender equity in around 2016, when national figures demonstrated that there was 11% female participation in the workforce, but only 1% of those women were in trades. Hopefully now that we're starting to increase those numbers. Opportunities for women to develop careers in construction are endless, not only in the professional spheres like architecture, surveying, and we have lots of administration roles, but even more so in all our trades like painting and plumbing and joinery, carpentry, glazing and so on. So we'd like to congratulate all the students that we had come through yesterday through the Try a Trade and through the forum to try and have a think about their careers and their opportunities. And we particularly like to thank the teachers that made those opportunities and the schools that actually encouraged their students to come along. In talking to the students at the Try a Trade, we actually found 2 students who indicated that they knew what they wanted to do. The rest of the students didn't know where they were heading at this moment in time. So I suppose for us that highlights the importance of all of us with everything that we do, sharing our knowledge, and we need to really open up the discussions about the career opportunities. We also need, I think, to really enhance the linkages with workplaces and education, because it's really important that we facilitate the career knowledge. It also makes you think about what we did and where we came from. So for me, when I left school, I actually had no idea what I wanted to do. I only had one criteria that had to be met, and that was there was no way known I was working inside. I grew up on a farm in Sassafras, and I did love that farm. We cropped and we had beef cattle, and we always did work really, really hard. I will say that in my opinion I thought I was exceptionally capable, and I was a little bit competitive, and I'm sure if my brother was here he would back me up with that statement. But I do wonder how many of us actually did know what we wanted to do when we left school. For me, at the end of grade 10, I had two choices, and I suppose things have changed a little bit now, but we had the choice of going to Don College or to Devonport Technical College. And tech, for me, was really the only choice because university was definitely not a consideration. At 15, I started my first job, and that was in a dental surgery in Devonport, and I worked there for 12 years. And it was inside. But fortunately I had a great boss, and I learnt so much at that time, particularly about health and lots about people. You should try to answer lots of phone calls for people that desperately need to come to the dentist and the others that really don't want to come. And we actually learned a lot about politics, and I probably wish I'd have listened a little bit more about politics rather than turning off through some of those conversations. But in hindsight, at that time in that dental surgery, when I was exceptionally shy and hardly talked to anyone unless I had to, I realised that I've learnt so many things along the way that assisted me in my business today and all that we did along the way. So also during that time, every time I had free time, I worked outside. And most of that was labouring, so we used to work on farms, which was hoeing weeds and doing lots of really interesting things and working on building sites. It wasn't so good for my hands when I had to turn up to work on Monday. I also applied for lots of jobs because I decided working in the dental industry was inside and it wasn't what I really wanted to do. So I tried to get a job in the construction industry, and I also tried truck driving. But I didn't get the opportunity because girls really didn't fit in that environment at that time. And I'm really not that old. It's not that long ago. So also, at the age of 19, my now husband, Tim, and I, we started our small business, so a small building business, and a year later we employed our first apprentice. So today, a little while later, I'm co-owner of Meadcon as a building and construction company. A little brag about Meadcon, of course. We do love what we do, and we employ a great team of people committed to creating the best outcomes for our clients. And our supervisors, and many of them were with us as apprentices and still with us now, our supervisors and our tradesmen are committed to training our apprentices. And we turn out highly capable, adaptable craftsmen, and we're ever so proud of them. So at the forum yesterday, and obviously most of you didn't get to participate in our end over at the TMAC building, we actually had 4 awesome ladies over there that I think one lady might have been in a 3rd year apprenticeship as an electrician, and the others were in their 1st year. We had a joiner and a carpenter, an electrician, and a young lady who was a fitter and machinist. And it was inspirational to hear their stories and how they're fitting into their workplace. They showed courage in taking up the challenge and bypassing employment in the traditional female occupations and transitioning into industries that have very low female participation. The inclusion of women in traditionally male-dominated roles has far-reaching benefits in areas such as efficiencies, communication, health and well-being, and positively impacting the general cultures of the workplace. And we're fortunate enough to have a young lady working in our company, and I don't know that I should say it out loud so that she hears it, but all feedback is that it's amazing the transformation that we're seeing even on our building sites and all our people. She's even perhaps improving some of our lunchtime packs for changing our trips down to the shop for morning tea. I found it interesting yesterday that the 4 young women that participated at the TMAC Centre, it's Kiara, Elsie, Logan and Zara, felt challenged by the career opportunities available in the school system. We often hear reactions from teachers and parents and friends when alternative pathways are discussed. So I suppose that's where our challenge is for all of us, that we really provide good conversation around women that want to join different careers and want to try working in a male-dominated area. And I suppose I should mention that I've been in that male-dominated area for a long time, and similarly, I haven't noticed anything. I have never had an issue in being in an environment that we also say is a male-dominated environment. It's not, and there aren't any challenges. It's just that at this moment in time, there are not enough women wishing to be part of it. So we're really excited to be able to make conversations and drive that change. So I suppose I'd like to open the conversation and say, how do we continue to talk about careers and pathways? And it's true for many, the obvious pathway is university, but it's also absolutely essential that the pathway through vocational education and training is considered. Both are equally beneficial. And it's quite exciting that on the Northwest Coast at the moment in a lot of our schools we're actually transitioning, and Cert 1s and Cert 2s and lots of other opportunities are being offered. So how do we encourage students to commence their pathway? It's really important that students have exposure to different employment opportunities. So practical work experience, whilst at school, enables students to gain an understanding of what they like, and even more important, what doesn't suit them. And we'll say that about on a building site, where it's really important if you think you want to be involved in the building industry to get out there, because we want you to know that you love it and you want to be part of it. And we want you to, if you're not, to make that decision before you get involved and 6 months down the track you decide it's not for you. Now, I also, I suppose, have challenged myself recently to ask a few personal questions, and I'll probably ask it now. So do we take the time to actually get to know ourselves? And do we understand what we enjoy and what helps us feel valued? And to identify the environments that make us feel energised. As I mentioned earlier, I know that I much prefer being outside and being active. Do we like helping others? And do we question whether we feel happier indoors or outdoors, being active or more passive? So for students, it's exposure to different environments that may help answer some of those questions and set them on the path which suits their needs and abilities. Sorry. In hindsight, looking back in my teenage years, we realised that although it was only a very short period of time, the influences that I experienced there have greatly impacted my future. And for me, from my experience in the dental surgery at 15 to my new role as a municipal councillor, I realised that I'm always learning. So when we developed our business, we started off quite small, and should I admit that I couldn't use a computer mouse when they first came on board, as we all learnt to operate in new areas. But to develop my business, I needed to study each role as I took it on. And with everything else that we do, if I decided I liked landscape painting, so I wanted to learn how to do it, so I went to a painting class. and stayed there. And I wanted to have an awesome garden, and I went and studied in a horticultural class. So to me, it's all about timely, applied learning that provides positive outcomes. And I think that's what's great about the system that we have available to us today. I do know that it's very easy today for us to lose a heck of a lot of time with Netflix and YouTube and all the social media, and I probably personally need to remind myself of that at times. But I wonder if we actually need to change our language. Instead of asking, what am I going to do when I leave school? Ask, what are my interests at this moment, and what should I be undertaking to promote my interests? Because learning pathways are always available. Perhaps they've never been easier than they are now. They're actually at our fingertips quite often. So school is the foundation which sets up one up. School is the foundation which sets up one up for a lifetime of learning. And I think we should talk that way, because for many of us, we were at school for a very short period of time, and we've learnt ever since. So particularly for the students that are in the room, I encourage you to establish good habits and to do something positive every day to set yourself up for success and have a valued and meaningful future. So my time in the building industry and the little bit that I've been involved in, I think I can say that women can do anything they choose to do, and I think we should support each other and live a lifetime of learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Vonette. It was great to see your daughter speak so eloquently on the news last night and is joining your company, which is a great sign of the leadership and culture that you have created over the past few decades with your own business. I'd now ask the table hosts to stand, and we're going to move on again. So, sorry guys. I promise it's not that painful, but if all the table hosts do move, if table 1 could move to table 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, so on. That'd be fabulous, thank you. I'll come back in about 5 minutes and we'll have another amazing guest speaker.
We're here at the AMWU Women's Forum in Burnie for 2019. I am so pleased to say our first guest speaker tonight was Her Excellency Governor Kate Warner. We're so pleased that she's here. We are so proud that you are here to be our guest speaker. What do you think this night does for two young women like this sitting here with us today?
Well, I hope for them that it's really inspiring and that they see perhaps a broader range of opportunities than they may have, had in their minds before. So I think that is special about it. Particularly, I think, including in continuing in education is really important, but also really opening up a wider range of opportunities. So trying to get more women and young women into male-dominated industries is important.
Yes.
And I think we've heard a little bit about that this evening. Our last speaker talked about getting women into construction, and I thought she was really, really encouraging in relation to that. So that is, I think, really important.
Thank you so much. Now, we are speaking to
Beth Hanley.
Hello, Beth. So, Beth, where are you from?
Launceston College, but Deloraine originally.
And what do you hope to get out of tonight, and what do you aspire to do with this in your future?
So out of tonight, hopefully learn more about different careers and hopefully empower myself to continue on with my aspirations and my dreams to hopefully become a lawyer. Not sure in what field, but hopefully, with the amazing speeches and the amazing people that I get to talk to, like Her Excellency, hopefully, I'll be inspired and encouraged to continue on my educational journey and hopefully achieve many great things.
Oh, we encourage you, no problem at all. Thank you very much. And I'm speaking to?
Kate Sheehan.
So, Kate, what do you aspire to do from getting all the benefits of being with some amazing women here tonight?
Yeah, I think it's just a really good networking opportunity. I'm thinking about
maybe going into law or economics. So meeting with professionals who have gone through that path and being able to, break through the barriers and experience those things is going to be helpful, and, getting advice and kind of meeting them and, just learning more about it, I think will be helpful.
Well, all I can say, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, we are in very good hands. If this is our future that we have standing here in front of us tonight, these two young ladies are the epitome of what we hope to achieve with this, and we hope that they both choose the two professions that they believe they should, and I hope that they do very well in our future. So thank you for being here tonight. And thank you so much, Your Excellency.
No, it's a great pleasure, and I have to agree with you. It's really inspiring that the kids that I've spoken to tonight, it's just wonderful that they're here and thinking about their futures and hopefully, choosing something audacious.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, ladies. Really appreciate it. Thank you. We so love having you here. So
I have to be here. I'm an AMWU member.
There you go. So thank you. Well, you're a wonderful recipient of that. So all I want to know is, what do you get out of being here in a night like this?
Look, I think there's an opportunity to talk to so many young kids. I mean, I've just spoken to a young girl who's in grade 10 who wants to be a boilermaker welder.
Oh.
Like, how fantastic is that? My grandson's a boilermaker welder.
There you go.
So, just having discussions with students about, what they plan to do. And some of them don't know yet, and that's okay as well, but this opens up opportunities for them as well. But getting to meet other people too, but just and being in a room full of women, how fantastic is that?
Well, you can't beat that. Women power, we love that.
Exactly.
We do notice there's a couple of blokes here tonight, but that's okay.
Yeah, but they're just lurking in the shadows. Yeah.
I think what we need to know is also, Anne, you must be very proud of what you've achieved since you've become elected and what you do for Tasmania. And I'm very proud to say that you are a friend.
Thank you.
And I love the fact that you are very nurturing to more women that come through in the game. So what do you think that you could say to someone out there that wants to have aspirations to do what you do?
Look, I think that really you can do anything you want to do in life. And I mean, I started out working in a chip factory.
Really?
Yeah, really.
There you go.
And never had aspirations to become a politician, but just life leads you along a path that sometimes you're not sure where it's going to take you, but it opens up opportunities, and I just think it's fantastic, and you've got to grab those opportunities and run with it. And I just love being here talking to young people about opportunities, building confidence, because that's really important.
Yes.
A lot of people lack confidence, and even if you do, you question yourself, but you can still always do stuff. You can always. I had lots of doubts. I used to think, can I do that? And then I thought, after I thought about it, I thought, yep, I actually can. And you know what? I actually can.
And I love the fact that, Anne, I see what you do for other women and how you nurture them and you really look after them. And I think you are one of the legacies that we really needed in Tasmania. So I'm very proud the fact that you represent us in Canberra. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's really important to mentor women because we learn so much from one another too. So it's really important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Fabulous. So our next speaker is like all of us were at some stage, or perhaps where we are right now, young, motivated and enthusiastic about her future. She chose to be an electrician and works for Lister Electrics in Launceston, an apprentice with passion for her role and very willing to share with others what it takes to be a success as a tradie. Please welcome Logan Barnett.
Hi everyone. I don't really know how to use all this stuff, so bear with me. So I'm going to build off the last speech about trades and getting into it and all that jazz. So I'm a female, I'm an electrician. I'm in my third year at the moment, and I had a test this morning, so my mind's a bit, but yeah. So this is my parents, and this is where the drive began. My dad was a boilermaker and always hands-on, and I was always helping him with tools and stuff, and yeah, he's made me switched on. He's like, grab that, do this, pull that, help me with this, lift this. So that's kind of where I got my drive from, and I thank him every day for it. And my mum, she makes me so proud. She started as an admin and moved into the mines, and now she's a female truck driver and she's killing it. This clicky thing's not working out for me. So I'm a really active person, can't stand still. So I do volunteer firefighting in my off time, and that helps me with my skills a lot and networking. And so I did start in hospitality though. I started at Donut King and then moved to Gloria Jean's, and I kind of got abused when I was waiting and making coffees. This wasn't good, that's not good, and everyone puts their life issues on you, and I wasn't having it, to be honest. So I was like, I want to travel, I want to get out there, I want to meet people, I want to do things. So I looked into what hands-on things there is to do, and electrician kept popping up, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And so I studied electrotechnology at Newstead TAFE. That's not what got me my job, so don't feel like you have to do that. What got me my job was my bubbly attitude and hard work. So my boss at the start said, oh, we'll give you a bit of a try. We're not too sure. We've had a few females that have come through and just not performed. They didn't want to be there. So I had the hard effort of trying to please him, showing up half an hour early, sitting in the car park, waiting till the light came up, and running in with my tool bag and my tools and just trying to impress him really. And he put me through a hard 3 weeks, but at the end he said, I liked you from day dot. So that's where that began, and now I have a pretty good relationship with my boss, and he really respects that I'm a female, and he always asks me how I'm doing, if I'm okay, and if I have any questions for him, sort of thing. I haven't had too much of an issue as such with men or the bad issues in that way. They've been pretty good, and as everyone evolves and the new generation comes up, we're going to not have that problem because they're going to grow up with us and we're going to do it together. Thank you. So I am not good at schoolwork, and I was getting C's and D's and didn't want to be at school anymore. So I learned through doing, but everyone is different. I've been talking to a lot of lovely ladies tonight, and everyone's different. So just because I do it through doing and I'm doing it this way with my life doesn't mean you have to do the same. But we're all here tonight to get young women inspired to do what they really want to do. So I hope you guys just believe in yourself enough to do what you want to do. Oh. Okay, so in my job, I do industrial, commercial and domestic work. So I work at Bogues Brewery, so any of the Bogues beers here today, I whited up the machines that get them here. And the same with your bread. I work at Cribs Bakery and the flour mill in Launceston, and same deal, I work on the machines, put the lights up so they can see, and I travel around the state going to all the Boral sites and the quarries, and that is an experience, that is. It's great to learn like all the different, what goes on behind the scenes, and I'm privileged enough to see all that. Skip. We'll go back. There we go. Not good at this. Oh, we skipped it. No. So I also do commercial, which is like schools and stuff. So I did the TVs and the lights and all that. I did the Burnie Plaza. So if you walk in there and look up, I did 12-hour night shifts there. So please appreciate it. I also worked on the fire trucks at the Launceston Airport, so if there's ever unfortunate event, these trucks will get there because I helped on them. Oh, there we go, going to the toilet again. And domestic, yeah, I do all your light switches, your lights, your ovens, all that jazz. I do new houses, old houses. The bad things of being an electrician is that sometimes you have to get in the roof and under the floor. If you don't look for the spiders, you don't see them. So, yeah, being a female in a man's world sucks when you gotta go to the toilet. It's dirty, it's gross, it smells, and they're very limited because boys can just turn around. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest struggle of me being a woman in the industry is finding a toilet. Other than that, I can't really say I've had an issue being an electrician. This is a quote I love so much, and this woman inspires me so much. So this is a quote I want you guys to read. So some of the things I did to get my apprenticeship from probably the start of high school is I just asked lots of questions, wanted to know more about the world, wanted to get a bit more life knowledge, not for being an electrician, but just in general, because when you speak to older people, if you don't know anything, they don't really want to talk to you. So yeah, I did my pre-apprenticeship at Newstead College. Again, that didn't help me get their apprenticeship, but it was definitely a bonus with my TAFE work now. Yeah, so I looked at some of the basic tools and like what they do, what they're used for, because the boys will definitely try and get you to get the left-handed screwdriver. My first year, I did not touch my phone once. I went on it every now and again at lunch times, but I just sat and chat to the boys, wanted to know what they wanted from me, what I wanted from them, what jobs they wanted me to do next, and constantly asking what's next, and just trying to think ahead so you don't really have time to be on your phone. Yeah, if you don't have anything to do either, just clean up. So yesterday I was a part of the forum and I got to meet some 10 to 12 year students, I think, and they had some pretty amazing stories. I heard that one of the young ladies pulled apart a motor when she was 7 years old. I was like, wow, I wish I could have done that. So just have an open mind, listen to what everyone's stories are. As I said, they're always going to be different. So being an electrician, these are my opportunities that can become of. The world is my oyster once I get my certificate. Honestly, I can go to sea, I can be on boats, I can keep doing domestics on multi-million-dollar houses that I do go through, and I do take my boots off and wear gloves. I can travel doing solar, so I worked with a group that worked in the Pacific on an island, and they put up solar panels and they come back really tanned and smiley. I also can be my own boss one day and own my own company and yeah, really make a stand if I want to. Oh, this thing. So this is the main question I always get asked. What is the pay like and how much are you going to be on? So to me, this is the minimum, and I'm always going to grow with the more skills I have. I can get a dual trade, or I can work in the mines, and I'm pretty sure I did see a job that would pay $95 an hour for an underground mine. That is crazy. If you have any questions, do come find me, because I'd love to work with women and have someone to chat to at lunchtime and talk about the girly thing, because I don't always look like this. I do have my nails done that I haven't had done since I got my apprenticeship, so I would love to talk to someone about getting nails done every now and again. Thank you.
That was amazing, Logan. Can't wait to have you back here maybe in a few years' time when you are your own boss. So well done. I would now like to invite Michael Wickham to the stage for a special presentation.
Okay, be very short and sweet. Everybody enjoying themselves? I hope so. Okay, we've got a couple of prizes to award, which I'd like to do before Her Excellency leaves for the evening. And those are part of the two-day program we've run as part of this forum for the masterclass cooking programs we had. One in Smithton, one in Burnie and one in Latrobe, with 4 excellent and brilliant chefs. And I think our young students have really got a lot out of the last 2 days. So 2 of our chefs here at the moment. We have Kirsten Bacon and Ainsley Wagner, who run the Latrobe kitchen. Ainsley is executive chef at Government House, has been for a lot of years, and Kirsten, her sister, was the first female pastry chef in Tasmania and currently an educator teacher at Elizabeth College. Our other chefs were Rachel Crafar, somewhere out there in the audience, who is the executive chef at the Launceston Country Club, and we had the amazing Shannon Martinez, who you've all heard speak tonight. So out of that, those 3 kitchens, we've awarded 3 prizes. Those 3 winners will get to have a week's work experience with Ainsley at Government House. So we would like to call up, when you're ready. Do you want to do that? Okay, I'll hand you over to Kirsten.
Thank you and welcome everybody. I just really quickly wanted to say on behalf of Ainsley and myself, I'd like to acknowledge the other 2 chefs as well, Shannon Martinez and Rachel Kafar, because we've noticed talking to a lot of young people that the particular classes and the master classes that have been something that a lot of students have just said, wow. So, you know, well done to those other chefs that we collaborated with. Thank you very much for being part of it. And an acknowledgement to the organisers as well for setting this gig up for these young women. I remember very early on talking to someone about my own daughter who's now 24, and I said to this friend of mine, you know, I'm really stressed about what she's doing because, you know, she could do anything she wants really. And he basically came back to me and said, well, how do you know she isn't? And I think, you know, when he said that, it made me think about what's important for you as young women, and that is, like everybody has said, strive for what you are interested in. I've heard it a few times tonight. You know, they always say if you're doing something that you love, it's not work. So go for it. So we've got, sorry, I'm only short, so I'm just going to put that down. We've got these 3 awards, and Ainsley's going to present them. We did present one earlier today because the young lady couldn't come, and that was presented to Miles Badash. And we have Emma Spinks. And Sarah Connolly.
Put your hand together, everybody. So, well done, girls. Very well done. And before I finish, I'd really do like to acknowledge both the Government House for allowing Ainsley to come up the last 2 days, and particularly Elizabeth College in Hobart for allowing Kirsten to come as well. So they've been allowed time off to do that and inspire these young women. So thank you very much to Government House and Elizabeth College. Very appreciated.
Didn't plan those stairs with the stress this evening. Congratulations, ladies. It's not every day that we have a person that can speak freely on what happens when galaxies collide. I've been told that it won't happen tonight, but I'm no astrophysicist, and hopefully the Examiner and the Advocate would be able to tell you what's happening before it does. But I promise we should be safe tonight. Our next guest speaker is a British-Australian astrophysicist, Australia's first Women in STEM ambassador, and Professor of Practice in Science Communication at the University of New South Wales. She left school at the age of 11 and taught herself at home, where she developed a great passion for astronomy. She joined her local amateur astronomical society in 1992, where she first learned to use a telescope and never looked back. Please welcome, from the University of Sydney, Professor Brian Cox's inspiration, Professor Lisa Harvey-Smith.
Wow, what a welcome. Don't think I can top that, but thank you so much for having me here this evening in beautiful Burnie. And I wanted to really talk to the younger women here tonight who are wondering what they might want to do with their lives. I've heard some amazing inspirational stories tonight. And I also wanted to reflect on what we can all do, however old we are, however advanced in our careers we are, to also continue learning throughout our lives. Because we've really got to face that careers are changing and that we all have to keep learning throughout our lives to keep expanding our boundaries. So as you very kindly said, I'm an astrophysicist. I specialise in looking upwards at the stars. I've actually got a bad neck because of that. But my career has actually not gone just one way. Like a lot of the people tonight, my career has gone through some twists and turns. So I wanted to explain how an astrophysicist ended up as the Australian government's Women in STEM ambassador. My job currently is to look after and encourage gender equity in science, technology, engineering and maths across the country. So I work with organisations, large things like the Academy of Science. I work with schools and colleges and teachers and educators, early childhood educators. I work with governments. I work with lots and lots of different companies and organisations to try and understand from research the reasons why young women have some barriers to progression, retention in careers, and why they don't want to go into particular careers in the first place. So those reasons then can lead to actions that can lead us into a better future where everyone, men and women and everyone else, can do the things they're interested in, that they're talented for, without barriers. And that is the kind of future I think we can all agree is a good thing. Because the way we're working is transforming too. A recent study internationally showed that about 800 million jobs will be lost to automation. And that doesn't mean the killer robots are taking our jobs. What that means is really that 40% of Australian jobs are likely to change as well in the next few years. So we will be learning new skills throughout our lives, whether we're young people right now in schools wondering what job they want to do, what career they want to move into, or whether we're people towards the middle of our careers. We've all got to be open-minded and think that the way that jobs are going is changing. Now, I'll go back to this because it's important as a STEM ambassador, as a Women in STEM ambassador, to explain why science, technology, engineering and maths is particularly important. It's not particularly important because we need hundreds of thousands of scientists in this country. We don't, but we need people who can think and who can build and who can design and who can imagine a different future. Imagine a future where we can use technologies for good and to help people and to help promote ourselves and promote international cooperation and promote health and promote the saving of species and clean water and the spreading of medicines and those things. And when you do research, you find that young women are more interested in those things than young men. That's statistically significant. So how we need to think about STEM needs to change. So how we talk about STEM in schools needs to change. It's not about blowing things up. It's not the Discovery Channel blowing stuff up idea of science, but it's really the idea of using technologies, being confident with them to build the future that we want to see. And STEM jobs are growing. So they grew in Australia at 1.5 times faster, so 50% faster than other types of jobs. So we're going to need young women as well as young men to study maths and science in high school, or do VET courses that involve using your hands, using your brains, using mathematics, and doing all those things so we can build this future together. Now, astrophysics. This is 1996. I grew up in quite a small village in the UK, in a place called Essex, just north of London. There's about 60 k's north of London. So the picture you're looking at now is my first ever selfie. 1996. And it looks a bit grainy because it was pitch black, firstly. I left the shutter open of my old Russian film camera, not digital camera, for 30 seconds, and I stood there very still. And what I'm pointing at there is not just the stars, but you can see this beautiful comet in the night sky. And this comet appeared in 1996. It wasn't Halley's Comet, that was 1986. Did anyone see Halley's Comet, by the way, in 1986? Yeah, I didn't. It was cloudy, because I grew up, as I said, in the UK. But 10 years later, this beautiful comet came. And I took this picture because I loved astronomy. I loved looking at the stars and just enjoying the beauty of nature. I love walking in the countryside, talking with my dad about why the river bends instead of flowing straight. And we talked about the trees and how they change through the seasons. And we asked questions, and we didn't know the answers, but we both tried to find out the answers. And that's how I grew up, just wondering and exploring. And a bit like the last speaker, I used to pull apart machines. So I actually stripped machines, and I used to build circuit boards and old washing machine parts and that kind of thing. So I was a curious child. But astronomy for me isn't about textbooks, and it isn't about studying. It's really about the human connection and the beauty of it. So that's how I found my passion. And a lot of people tonight have been talking about their passions, which are very different. But you just know when a subject grabs you and when you really want to pursue something. For me, that was astronomy. So, as you said in the introduction, I didn't go to school after the age of 11. I went to a nice local primary school. My mum was the head teacher. But at the age of 11, I had the option to go to the local high school. And they didn't let girls do soccer. They didn't let girls do woodwork and metalwork. And they forced girls to wear skirts as a school uniform. And that whole thing didn't suit me at all. So I decided to teach myself at home. And I literally just read books and watched educational TV shows, and I played the violin, and I read philosophy, and I read about poetry, and I wrote poems, and I played in the countryside, and I just thought about the world and our place in the universe. And that was my education. After that, I actually went to university, because that's how the world works. Sometimes you have to do exams. I can't actually move this slide on now. I'll try again. There we go. So my journey took me back into conventional education. I did my exams. Maths, physics, and chemistry were my focus, because I knew that I'd wanted to do astronomy. I had to do those subjects. And I went to one of the pretty good universities in the UK, Newcastle. And I studied astrophysics for 4 years. It was really boring. I loved astronomy, I loved physics, I loved the subject with an absolute passion and delight, but the teaching was boring. It was blackboards, chalk, like 100-year-old lecturers, all male, all looked exactly the same. It was depressing. And this is why we need diversity, and this is why we need new teaching techniques, and we need to excite people with hands-on learning, because it was really boring. But I persevered because I liked it. So I'll go back. My journey took me to a PhD, which is a research degree, because again, that's the path that people often take into academia. There's a gigantic radio telescope near Manchester in the United Kingdom, and it's called Jodrell Bank Observatory, and I went there for 3 years and I did research into the beautiful clouds of gas in our Milky Way galaxy and what's lurking inside there. So when you look with a radio telescope, you're looking at radio waves coming from these really massive stars, and they're being born inside these clouds of gas floating around in space. So that's what I studied, and my thesis was called Studies of Hydroxyl and Methanol Mazes in Star-Forming Regions. It sounds boring, but basically it's really cool stars forming inside these clouds of gas. And I got my PhD, and that was a proud moment for me because nobody in my family had done a degree before. And then I had the option to work overseas, which was fantastic. So that's where my passion took me. This is a picture of me and a professor, this is about 15 years ago, a German professor who I was working with at the time, at the Effelsberg radio telescope, a 100-metre giant radio dish. So this telescope that's looking into space, and we were trying to find stars in other galaxies that were forming and shining brightly. So fascinating stuff, moving to other countries. After that, moved to Holland and worked there for a couple of years, and then moved here to Australia to work on an amazing project called the Square Kilometre Array. Has anyone heard of the Square Kilometre Array? Anyone? Okay. So somebody at the back said yes, because it's an amazing project in this country, in Australia, just over the water. It's in WA, and it's a project that 10 or 12 countries from around the world have got together, banded together, and decided to build the most powerful radio telescope in the whole world. So for a number of years, about 7 years, I was working as the project scientist for the telescopes that were being developed in the Western Australian desert, in the Murchison region, about 3.5 hours from Geraldton. And in that project, I get to work on building sites, to get to work on data with supercomputers, with engineers, with electricians, with all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life, with traditional owners as well from the local Wadri community. So it was a fascinating, interesting project, immersed with lots of different people from different disciplines, different countries. Really, really interesting. And it was great as well, lots of hands-on work, driving four-wheel drives, flying in little aeroplanes out to remote areas of the country, and going up on cherry pickers. That's me on the telehandler / cherry picker there at the top of the telescope with one of the engineers called Susie, and she was one of the chief hands-on engineers at the site. So really fascinating work. And we were looking at things like, love this, we were looking at things like this. Can anyone guess what this is? Anyone? It's a supernova. So this is the remnant of a supernova, actually. It's a massive cloud of gas, which is a star that's exploded in space. It's exploded 1,013 years ago. This is supernova 1006. So in the year 1006, 1,013-ish years ago, this exploded, this star. It was a normal star, and then it went bang. And ancient Chinese astronomers actually wrote about this, and we still can find the writings. And they said there's a new star in the sky, and it's brighter than the moon, and it's amazing. During the day, you could see this star. And all we can see now is the remnants of glowing gas from this star that's expanding out into space. This is the kind of thing I got to look at in my career. Really fascinating stuff. Excuse the jumping around, everyone. This is very tricky. There we go. Okay, the other surprising things I've got to do in my career that I didn't expect is a lot of speaking and a lot of shows and a lot of even TV presenting. So I was a presenter on Stargazing Live on ABC. Did anyone see the Stargazing Live? You may have taken part in star parties even. Someone over there. I've worked with Apollo astronauts who have toured this country. We've done live speaking tours. I've done them with Buzz Aldrin, who was the second man on the moon. First man to wee on the moon, according to him. That's his claim to fame. This here you can see with Charlie Duke and Jerry Griffin. So the two astronauts there, they both, the two astronaut jackets. Charlie Duke is the gentleman at the very back. He flew to the moon. He actually piloted the lunar module on Apollo 16 in 1972. And I also worked with the late Gene Cernan, who was the last man on the moon. And we toured Australia and spoke to audiences. It was absolutely wonderful to actually teach people. We did go to the moon and what it was like. And they really inspire young people. All these experiences I never expected to have. And it's really just, the point I'm trying to make is that amazing things can come from following your passion. And the second thing is writing books. I hated writing when I was young. I loved reading, I hated writing, and I thought I'd never write anything in my life. But I've actually written 2 books now. So I've written one about galaxies colliding and a new children's book called Under the Stars, which is coming out soon, which is bedtime astrophysics. So it's beautifully illustrated. It's a huge, thick book so that you can read it to young kids or they can read it to themselves. And each of the stories answers a question like, why is the sky blue? What's a shooting star? Why does Jupiter have stripes? What happens when you fall into a black hole? So all of this stuff's really surprised me in my career. And yeah, it's just a wonderful pleasure to be able to share that with people, your passion. So what careers can you have to do with astronomy and space? Because it's not just astronomy we've got in this country now. We've got the new Australian Space Agency, and I've just been appointed to the advisory committee to the Australian Space Agency. And the idea of the agency is not to send people to the moon, but it's to support the building of satellites, to manage space law, to actually zap things with lasers in space that are bad, things like space junk, to work with organisations like NASA, the European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency in their missions to other worlds, and do the sort of tracking work. So when a spacecraft is out in space, we use our giant radio dishes to listen to the signals and to create that downlink so that they can talk to Earth. So all these amazing things that we're doing now creates opportunities. There's so many of them. You can do astronomy research, you can do space or Earth research, so using satellites to look at the ground, look at groundwater, look at tree coverage, vegetation, monitor weather, look at agriculture, how's your farm doing? You can do that from space now. You can do robotics, mechatronics, all the cool stuff that young kids are often doing in schools nowadays. You can do trades, practical work. You can do engineering, creating, designing, building, creating new solutions. You can work on renewable energy. We've got one of the biggest solar power stations at this new telescope because it's so remote, and this country is so remote in many regions that it doesn't have grid power. So we've got these really exciting opportunities in renewable energy too. You can look at supercomputing, software engineering, design, all of these things. And we need lots of people working in education, outreach and communications, Indigenous liaison, law. There's so many areas you can work in. And people work on these projects and they've got one eye on the sky and space and one eye on their particular area of expertise. So it's a great collaboration. The space industry is growing, the astronomy industry is growing, but the main message is not do astronomy, but do what you love, as has been said all throughout tonight, because you will never regret doing what you love. Just make sure you get the right advice. Don't take any messing around from people. We have laws in this country that protect you at work. So if something happens that you're not comfortable with, you report it, you get help, because it's not on, it's not going to happen. And you get support, because women supporting each other and men supporting women is the way forward. So let's do that. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful life. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Don't forget, Lisa has her book down the back that she's willing to sign as well for you all. I told you would be inspired, so I won't be offended if you jump up and run to the back to get a copy of that book. I also hope that her speech inspires you to explore STEM subjects. And if you do have your phone and you are interested in STEM, or you know someone who should find out some more information and some pathways there, please open it up and put a note or go to Google on your phone and just type in Australian Government Women in STEM Ambassador, and you'll find a website there and you'll be able to get a lot of that information that Lisa was talking about. So you are welcome to use your phones right now if you'd like to do that. We will be now changing tables again. So if we can, I feel like the worst person in the world when I do this. So if the table hosts could stand, say your farewells, and we'll make a really, really quick move. I'm not going to move from the stage this time.
I'm so happy to say that Anita Dow here, our MP for State Government, is here. I'm just so pleased that she's honoured us with her presence. She'll think I'm being sarcastic, but I'm so not, because I love Anita. I love what she brings to us here on this table with the Women's Forum, and I'm just so pleased that she's here. So I wonder what she's thinking about tonight.
I think it's fantastic to have this event being held on the Northwest Coast and more so in Burnie, and I think the cross-section of people that are here tonight from the different areas of industry, community representation and the like is just absolutely fantastic.
Oh, I so agree. I mean, we just can't get enough of what's going on. There are so many different facets, different industries, so many women here, let alone there's a couple of men, but that's okay.
That's important too. It's great that they've come along as well to show their support for this event, and I think the calibre of speakers is just outstanding, from those, you know, based on the ground, you know, it's all about people living their dream, isn't it, and doing what makes them happy, and I think that's the great message that's been conveyed here tonight, is about, you know, do whatever makes you happy and don't underestimate what you can achieve.
Oh, that's so true. And you being a former mayor of Burnie, you must be so proud that we're having this event in Burnie. And I think it's nice to show that we can really put it on the Northwest Coast. I mean, there would be 330 people here tonight from all different realms, and I believe we've got high schools from Deloraine right through to Smithton, so it's amazing.
And that, I think, is the great thing about tonight, is all the young people that are here as well, and hopefully this leaves an impression on them, and this is something that is great to have on offering on the coast for our young people as well. Very often we have to travel to Hobart for things like this, or to Launceston, larger centres, so it's absolutely imperative that we give every opportunity for our young people to have access to fantastic guest speakers, but not only that, the life experience of those people.
Women's Forum in Burnie 2019, and I have some people here from Devonport, Don College. We have teacher Heather Rawding, and we have Zamori, a student at Don College, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Zamori, we're so pleased you're here tonight, and I'd just like to ask you the simplest question. What are you getting out of being here tonight?
I'm getting a lot of just knowledge on everyone's career paths and what there is out there for me to do in the world, and just a lot of
opening up your options.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What we'd like to think is it's making you think and making you realise that nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
Okay? So all these people here are trying to inspire you and know that just because you're a girl, you can do anything you put your mind to, sweetheart. What do you think of that?
I think that's amazing. That's really, really good.
Awesome. Heather, what do you think the students are getting out of this from seeing these amazing, inspiring women speakers here tonight?
I think just as you said, you know, that there are no barriers, or there should be no barriers, and if there are, they need to question those barriers and just keep trying, take a different pathway and do what they're interested in. I thought that was really good advice, not necessarily to be aspiring to this position, but just to go from where they're at now and what they're interested in. I think they've got that message. Yeah.
And we're so pleased to have people here, like from Don College. We've got students from Deloraine, we've got students from Smithton, Parklands, we've got people from all over, Helier College. It's just amazing, because the whole point is we're trying to show people like Zamori here that you can do whatever you like, girlfriend. What do you think of that?
That's really amazing that people have just, you know, made events like this that can give us all opportunities and expand our thinking.
Yeah. I don't know if you realise there are amazing people behind this, sponsors, business people who have put this together. This event is a free event for everyone to attend. However, we all know things cost, and we really appreciate the fact that so many businesses and wonderful sponsors are behind this. You probably wouldn't even realise that, would you?
No, not really.
No. So we really appreciate all our sponsors, and we're just so thankful, and we hope this event grows. So thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Rebecca, what are you getting out of this tonight?
Tonight's inspiring. I've spoken to so many young women who've been hearing the speeches from your guest presenters, and they're blown away. Just to talk about the different career options, and also learning that you don't need to know what you're going to do when you're 16.
Very true.
And that you can go on a range of different paths, but just to follow your passion.
I'll ask you a tricky question. What would you tell your 16-year-old self now?
When I was 16, I wanted to be a vet.
There you go.
So I obviously ended up becoming a vet, but what I tell my 16-year-old self is to just go for it. I wasn't very confident as a young woman.
That's amazing to know, isn't it?
I think that's what I've been talking to a lot of young women about tonight too, who say they could never imagine speaking in public.
Yes.
I was terrified of speaking in public when I was a young woman too. So you just need to be passionate about something and just have a goal and work toward it. And I think we've heard a lot about that tonight. You can have some detours on the way, but if you continue to go toward what it is you're striving to achieve, you'll get there.
So true. Look, I think you are the epitome of what we want to see women can achieve here in Tassie, let alone in Australia. And you are really a leader, of course, to so many young women and so inspiring. We love you. So I just want to say, we're so pleased you're here tonight. We're so pleased that you're getting to speak to such lovely young local women, because that's the opportunity they don't normally get unless we have an AMWU Women's Forum, because without this facility and this platform for our young girls, they don't get to see Rebecca and talk to them at this level. So it's so important. So I want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you for organising this. This is not the first time I've been to one of these forums, and every time I speak to so many different women from different backgrounds and they get so much out of it. So I think it's a wonderful program, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, and thank you to all the organisers and all our sponsors and all the businesses that are behind this. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Rebecca.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our second last, but not least, guest speaker for the evening. I am reliably informed that today and yesterday would simply not happen without the support of Federal Group. And while arranging the forum in Year 1, it became apparent that our next speaker's story was perfect for the occasion. Ladies, to prove any one of us from any upbringing in any corner of the state can rise to the highest levels in our most promising economic pillar, please welcome a previous Director of Marketing at Tourism Tasmania and now the Sales and Marketing Manager for both West Point Casino and Country Club Casino, Catherine McCann.
My story is an interesting one. I'm delighted to be here tonight representing the Federal Group. And I've heard a lot of discussion around particularly the hospitality sector, and I guess I come here with a lot of experience, not just in hospitality but also in the tourism sector. And it is true that the tourism sector in Tasmania is, I think, one of our shining lights, and currently employing well over 22,000 directly in the sector and as many indirectly. So there's definitely plenty of opportunity. I was born in 1981 to hardworking parents who both married each other before they turned 18. I grew up in Bridgewater in the south, and for those that know that area, it's certainly one of the lower socioeconomic areas in Tasmania. I went to school in the northern suburbs of Hobart, and I've always had a really active lifestyle. I, like some of the other speakers here tonight, went on to study at the University of Tasmania, and I was the first person in my family also to get a university degree. I met my husband when I was 20, planning to travel the world, and I didn't, but I've gone on to travel through work, and I'm still married to him today. I'm very fortunate to have two beautiful children, Harriet, who's here tonight, she's 9 years old, and Oscar, who's just about to turn 13. Today I live on the Eastern Shore in Hobart, and I work, as I said earlier, at the Federal Group. My professional experience is an interesting journey, and I think probably the story, or I guess the learning I've had tonight listening to some amazing speakers, is that it is a journey. I started off working in retail when I was just 14 years old, and I worked in some pretty hardcore retail environments that really, I think, paved the way for me in terms of knowing how to work hard, fronting up, getting yourself organised, and ultimately developing some incredible relationships. I went on to study a double degree at the University of Tasmania, and in fact the degree that I studied at the time, I was the only person that graduated with a double major in psychology and a marketing degree. That's now quite a common combination. It makes good sense to me that it would be. Psychology is all about learning about how people behave and what drives behaviour, and marketing is obviously around consumer communications that lead to changing consumer behaviour. I've played sport all my life, and I still do today, and I did a lot of paid umpiring when I was growing up, and I think I say to the young people in the room here today, you know, my son actually now at 12 years of age is umpiring hockey, And I think it's just such a wonderful way out, whether it's, whether you're sporting group or your Cubs or Scouts or whatever it might be, to get yourself involved and really learn some good life skills. I was fortunate enough to become the first female, but the only graduate for the ANZ Bank here in Tasmania. And for those that are interested in, I think graduate programs at the university, when you're at university, are a really, really sensible way of getting some good experience in businesses where you get to have a bit of a try in different areas. For me, and I heard this earlier before, I worked out pretty darn quickly that a lifetime in banking was not going to work for me. So after I finished the graduate program, I was fortunate enough to get my first job here in the state government, working in the Department of Economic Development. I was so blessed with the boss that I had when I started. He was an incredible man, not just a boss, but a coach and a mentor. And he was one of these guys that lent in and supported women to be the best they could be. I was 24 years old when I had my son. He made my return to work as a young mum just absolutely wonderful. He was one of those guys who just knew how far to push you, and he gave me opportunities that I am very, very grateful for. I went on from working in economic development, I was going to say state growth, it's state growth now, to work for Tourism Tasmania in the first iteration, and that was my first management role. At the age of 27, I got the greatest gift of all, my first 180-degree feedback. I thought I was a terrific boss. I was really good at telling people what to do, and the best thing that happened at that time was my staff told me. From that moment on, I think I really worked hard to understand and really grow and evolve my leadership style. And I say to everyone here tonight, feedback, giving and receiving feedback is the greatest gift one can ever have. If you have an opportunity to give feedback, do it well, do it with care, do it with compassion, but be honest. If you've got an opportunity to receive feedback, I would encourage exactly the same. From Tourism Tasmania, I went to work for Hobart Airport, working in the aviation sector. I was a General Manager of Business Development there, and that was a very senior role for me at that time, and certainly in a male-dominated sector. I was fortunate enough from there to go to Tourism Tasmania to be the Director of Marketing, and I spent 2 incredible years at Tourism Tasmania. From there, I've now worked with the federal group for the last 5 years. And that's been an incredible journey, a transformational journey, and probably again, we've heard it a lot tonight, albeit in the tourism sector, the front line of the tourism sector is heavily female dominated, but the top of the tree is still largely male dominated. So the opportunity, particularly for women in this sector, to take on senior roles is enormous, and I think incredibly important. Some of the other stuff that I've done, and I think this is really critical in terms of how we all think about our careers, is there's what you do at work, and then there's the stuff outside of work that's particularly important. I am now the Director and Deputy Chair of the Tourism Industry Council of Tasmania, and I've been on the Tourism Industry Council for around 8 years in 2 iterations, and I'm the first ever executive leader as a female on the Tourism Industry Council. I'm also a Director of the Tasmanian Heritage Council, and that's a statutory appointment and one that I'm incredibly proud to be a part of. In addition to that, I'm a Director of Oak Possibility in the Disability Services sector. That is an absolutely wonderful position for me to hold and gives me an opportunity to give back in a space that I feel deeply passionate about. From when I look at the Tourism Industry Council and Tasmanian Heritage Council, they're both directly affiliated with my work. They make logical sense for me to be involved. The Oak position, on the other hand, is a passion for me. And we've heard this tonight repeatedly, and what I would encourage all of you to do is really to find your passion. I'm at a stage in my career where giving back and volunteering on the front line is a little bit difficult, just in terms of actually having the available capacity and time to do that. By participating in a board role, I can use my skills and expertise to give back in a way that I feel is going to benefit not just me personally by being involved, but ultimately, in this instance, the disability sector in Tasmania. I've also actively taken on mentoring. I've been a mentor and I've been a mentee. I really, really encourage all of you to have a good think about, have you got a mentor? Can you be mentoring someone else? We've heard a lot about women leaning in tonight. It is really, really important to be generous with your time, and I would really encourage that. In terms of thinking about what to talk about tonight, I probably want to get pretty practical, and what I've gone through is thought about what my 3 key learnings are. They're pretty simple. The first one, wellness. Look after your well-being. Physical, mental, emotional and spiritual. It is so critically important. Find your poison, find your happy place and make it a priority. Without your well-being, nothing else actually matters. Make it a part of your life. Don't try and add it in. Now, for a number of you who are here, you're still at school, still studying or starting your careers, I can tell you as life gets busier, as you're working, you're taking on more responsibility, your ability to add things in is going to become really, really difficult. So find what you're passionate about, whether it's doing yoga, whether it's walking on the beach, whether it's reading, hopefully something with some physicality around it. Make it a part of your routine. About 6 years ago or 5 years ago when I moved over to the federal group, I had an absolute dream that one day, it's a very minor thing, but one day I might run a marathon. And I'd been working and travelling a lot and, I was only young, but I couldn't find the time or the consistency to do the training to do that. And I just thought maybe that's a pipe dream, it's never going to happen. About 4 weeks ago, I ran my 6th marathon. And the reason I did that, and I'm not fast, I just get out there and I get it done, but the reason that happened is because I've prioritised my well-being and the consistency around training, and I don't regret that for a moment. You've got to make your well-being sustainable for the long term. So whatever you do, whatever you're into, it's got to become routine, it's got to become consistent. So I do encourage you all to have a really good think about that. Look in the mirror, put the mirror up and say, am I really looking after my well-being? Am I really looking after my well-being? And I know there are days where I can comfortably say, no, I'm not, and I'm sure all of us can, and I'd really, really encourage you to go away from today and have a good think about that. The link between wellness and productivity, the link between wellness and happiness, it's undisputable. So that's my number one learning, and I'd really encourage you to think about it. My second learning is around goal setting and decision making. Set goals. It is so important. Someone once told me, and it's probably the best advice I've ever had around goal setting, is for every major one, set 7 little ones. It's well and good to set out and say, I want to achieve X, and a big, hairy, audacious goal or whatever it might be, but break it down. Celebrate what you achieved today on that journey to get to your big one. So for every big goal that you think that you want to go for, break it down, celebrate your journey, and you'll find it a lot easier to chip away if you've got successes to be happy about on the journey. Learn from your failures and your misses. It's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen, and it's so critically important that you do. Sometimes you might get yourself in a heightened emotional state and it's hard to actually learn or reflect, particularly on something that hasn't gone that well. What I'd really encourage, and I've only had this situation for myself in the workplace in the last couple of weeks, is to get your emotional resilience to a place you need to be, step back, reflect, write it down if you need to, think about it, give yourself some headspace and learn from it. Another piece of advice that I was once given, and I think it's probably the best I've ever had, is particularly as young women, and probably, the fact that you're all here tonight, probably young, ambitious women, people that want to achieve things, you can have everything in life, just not at once. So from my perspective, I often think about this, and I think we all do it. We want things, we all want whatever it might be, but we've often got to make trade-offs. That's okay. In fact, that's something that we should celebrate. Make decisions, be conscious of them, and just be comfortable and happy with that. It might just mean that at some point in time you have to take a sideward step, or you have to make a sacrifice, or you have to put something on hold for a little bit. Absolutely follow your dreams, but recognise that not everything has to be perfect all of the time, and it probably won't be. Make decisions about what's important to you now, today, and be comfortable with that. I think as women, and we've heard a little bit of this tonight, we can often be our own harshest critics. We're probably really, really, really hard on ourselves. There's only one person that needs to believe in your decisions, just one, and that's you. Some days that's a really, really hard pill to swallow, I know for me personally that can be a real challenge, but I do encourage you, when you make a decision, back yourself in, be comfortable with it and follow it hard. And the last learning, and probably one that I'm deeply passionate about, is relationships. It is really, really important that you care for yourself and for others. And I don't just talk about professionally, I talk about personally. Show humility and gratitude. Be generous. Be kind. Invest in relationships. When everything else goes to custard, I can tell you the thing that will, get you out of strife or get you to a place where you can start moving forward again will be relationships, and they will help you, and they'll help you to the end. Get a mentor. I talked about it earlier, and learn from others. One thing in my career that I have been so unbelievably, it's been a wonderful thing for me is people love to actually help. So ask, sit down. There's been some amazing speakers here tonight. Go along and ask them, what did you do in this situation? Or could I cheer your ear? People will generally say, yeah, they'd love to help you. And I think, for yourself as well, you've all got, no doubt, advice or learnings or direction or just some positivity to give to others, and I'd encourage you all to do that too. Be a team player. It is so important. I've worked in teams where there's individuals that are not team players, and I can tell you it ain't that much fun. And I'm sure for those that are here that have also had that experience, you'd say the same. It is really, really important to learn how to be a team player, particularly in your professional pursuit. The second 2 points are probably, to me, inextricably linked, and that is be a good human. At the end of the day, that's going to be the most important thing. So professionally, and we're on a workplace, we see lots go on and things come and go. And at the end of the day, I had a guy last week, he finished up at work and I called him up, I couldn't get down to his drinks, and I said, mate, it's sad to see you go, and obviously, you've achieved a lot of great things in the business and you've done X, Y and Z, but what we'll really miss about you is you. The person that you are, and particularly what you bring to the workplace in this instance, and just really encourage everyone to think about that and think about how you're behaving and how you're impacting others. And the last piece of learning that I have to share around relationships is to have fun, particularly at work. We've heard tonight, I think, some terrific guidance around following your passion and following what you love. That doesn't mean it's always going to be rosy. I think most of us who have, out there working in the big wide world know that. But if you can't bring work to fun, ultimately work should make you a better person. If you're going to work and, you've lost your mojo or it's no fun, be brave, be courageous, and probably make some steps to get yourself out of that situation and find something that will reignite your flame. Thanks guys, enjoy your night, and Federal Group are delighted to be here tonight.
What some amazing advice there from Catherine of Federal Group. I'd now like to welcome Michael Wickham back to the stage. Michael is the originator of the Women's Forum and the AMWU State Representative, and he's here to present some scholarships and make some other announcements.
I'd like to, before we get to our final speaker, just pass over to John. I hope everybody's enjoyed the night. Take the opportunity to fill out the survey form for me. That is somewhat of a learning curve, these programs for us. So any feedback we get to improve it and make it a better night for everybody, because we are going to continue on with them. Please do take the opportunity, and I thank everybody for your attendance. John, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, you do want to hear from blokes tonight because it's a night for women, and it's fantastic to be up here on the Northwest Coast. Just wanted to thank our sponsors and our special guests, the people that have been moving around the tables, some fantastic women, and it's great to see so many young women who are so keen to get more and more information, especially about trades. I'm a boilermaker by trade, so I know how important trades are and how good a future they can provide people, and we need to see more women
in trades, and that was, I think, one of the highlights of the last couple of days is the focus on trade training, because you can have a great life by getting a trade. And as some of our speakers said, the young electrician, there's a great future for you if you get a trade. Thanks to our sponsors, especially our sponsors, thanks to our special guests, but thanks very much to Mick. Mick Wickham has done this for 3 years now, and he just does it. I mean, I don't have a lot to do with it. I do support him, but he just organises the sponsors, organises speakers, organises the venues. So please put your hands together for Mick Wickham and his wonderful work.
I wasn't quick enough to grab some of those. Our final speaker is here to wrap up the evening for us and ensure that you leave floating on air, driven to be successful, and to know there is always someone who is prepared to support you and encourage you. Please welcome author, motivational speaker, mentor, and business strategist, Brenda Ann Siar-Usis.
Anyway, I am so inspired. Let me tell you something. I feel like I need a career change right now. When I hear of all of these amazing women in this room, I just think to myself, I'm honoured to be part of them, and I'm honoured to be a woman. I really and truly am. Let's get started, shall we? Let's see if I can operate this little machine. All right, I don't know, who's heard of Mount Rushmore in America? Mount Rushmore, yeah, that's it. Well, I Googled it this past week while I was preparing for this specific event. And I was really and truly inspired to hear how Mount Rushmore actually came about. And it was actually a historian called Diane Robinson who had this amazing vision in her mind to go out there and to change the face of the mountain and use it to attract tourists to the South Dakota area. Now, the fact is, I think that's a tough feat to do. But she found somebody, a sculptor. Now, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, it's just too difficult. But she found this person who she thought would be able to come along and change the face of this mountain. When he arrived there, he looked at this mountain and he saw the possibilities. Not to turn it into a Disney World or to add a Western cowboy to the front, but he thought that he would add the 4 faces of the most 4 prominent American presidents to this mountain. He was so impressed with this, and he loved the idea so much that he was able to sell this vision to the people who were doing this project. The fact is, when he looked at this rock, he said he already knew that the faces of these presidents were there. All he needed to do was to chip out the rock. Needless to say, this amazing sculpture had a crew of 400 people, and in 1927 began carving out the rock, of these 4 faces. Sadly, in 1947, he died before finishing the last one. But today, those faces stand. That's a legacy that has been left for the American people by this amazing sculptor. Now, can you imagine having and holding a vision like that for your own life? The second story I want to tell you tonight is about somebody called Viktor Frankl. Now, you may know him. He's a psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. When he told his story in this book, he mentioned being in the concentration camps many, many years ago. And he had 2 friends. One was his friend who was a father of 2 children, and the other was a research scientist. These men were destitute. It was a horrible time for them. There was no food. You can probably just imagine for yourself what an awful position it would have been to be in. But what he did was, when these people, these 2 friends of his, wanted to commit suicide, he instilled hope in them. He told his friend to remember the fact that he had 2 children at home, and that these 2 children were waiting for him to go back and to be their father. The second research scientist, the second friend, the research scientist, he said to him, when you go back, remember, you've got a legacy to leave. Your research is going to impact the whole of Europe. And while he was in this concentration camp, he himself used to lie in bed and visualize how he would stand in front of his audience as a lecturer and teach them about the what's the word? Atrocities, whatever it is. Oops. In the whole, in the university that he taught at. Now, these are people with vision. Both the sculptor and Viktor Frankl had vision. They could see the future in front of them. Now, I know that standing here tonight, okay, watching each and every one of you, moving from table to table, I have heard stories, I have spoken to people, and I know that for the younger generation, you must be inspired by the time you leave here tonight, because I know I am. You've been given glimpses of what your future could hold. You've been given ideas and opportunities of the things that you can do. So this place is an ideal place for you to be in. And if you're part of the older generation or mature-aged, like I am, you may have had a dream sometime in your life, but you may also have forgotten that dream. And I hope that tonight has inspired you to start thinking about those lost dreams that you may have, right? And you reignite them again. There's some of you here that have put your careers on hold. There's some of you who've changed your careers and never followed the dream in your heart. I hope that tonight will just flick a little switch and allow you to start dreaming again. Do you know, I was born in South Africa quite some time ago, and I grew up on a farm. My dad was a very strict man, but he was also a very simple man. And for him, it was important to have a career that stretched for 40 to 50 to 60 years. We don't have that in today's world. People move from career to career easily. And the fact is, he said to me, and he encouraged me to go out there and find a stable job for myself. He wanted me to become either a teacher or a banker. So obviously, that wasn't what my dream was. I had big dreams for my life. I had huge visions for my life. And being a banker and a teacher wasn't one of them. But I listened to the voice of reason, and I did the sensible thing. And 20 years later, I found myself in a corporate, well, for 20 years, I found myself working in a corporate banking career, all right, as a senior corporate bank manager back in South Africa. There were times when I really felt satisfied with the career choice that I'd made, with my life, with what I'd done. I'd achieved huge things in my corporate career, one of them being nominated as South African Businesswoman of the Year in my industry. But you know what? There was always that little niggle in the pit of my stomach that I was meant for more. And it was that little niggle that kept on knocking on the inside of my heart, telling me that something had to change. Now I know that many of you are sitting here tonight, and I want to just share a few statistics with you, because obviously all good presentations have a few statistics in that may get you thinking about where you could move to in the future. You know, while I was doing this research, I put in a few phrases, one of them being, do I have a vision for my life? And that phrase has been searched 723 million times. Another phrase, my life has no meaning, has been searched 278 million times. And the third, how do I find my vision, has been searched 968 million times. So you can see that vision is an important thing for you to have in your life. Without vision, man perishes or lives a very mundane life. We were all born with vision in our lives. Vision creates energy. Vision draws the future from what you can see, not with your eyes, but with your heart, into the now. We are built to be able to follow and find that vision in our lives. If we don't, we become sick human beings. We become a nation that is lost. Vision captures the imagination. It draws people and resources and ideas together so that you can fulfill a specific purpose. This specific event was somebody's vision. It was in somebody's mind before it was ever done. And I think for many of you, maybe you have that vision in your mind. You know, vision is something that organizations and individuals commit to, and then they persist so that they can do their best. And I believe that we are all born with vision. Every single one of us are born with it. You can see it, not with your eyes. You can feel it in your heart. It's there, and it knocks quietly at the door, waiting for you to open it. You know, a couple of years after arriving back in South Africa, I had truly lost my identity. I didn't know who I was. I had got stuck. I was looping in a circle. I had thought that I would move from another country to here, and I would just slot straight in and just keep on doing what I was doing. But life had other things in mind for me. And one day I woke up, sat down in my lounge room, looked out of my huge, big, beautiful glass windows at the ocean, and I asked myself these questions. Who am I? What is my vision for my life? How can I contribute, and how can I make a difference in this world? And it was while I was sitting there looking out of those glass windows that I suddenly remembered a time when I was about 10 years old. And I remembered my mother giving me a silver jumpsuit. It was bright, it was shiny, and I absolutely loved it. I would dance, and I would prance, and I would put it on and play dress-ups. I would imagine the stories in my mind as I played with my brothers and my sisters. All that I wanted to do was to inspire them and to make them happy. And you know, just thinking of that, even then, something inside of me knew what it was that I needed to do. It knew that I loved to encourage, it knew that I loved to inspire, it knew that I loved to cultivate courage in others so they could take inspired action to fulfill their potential in life and to achieve their dreams. But as life happens, life gets in the way, and whether it is by your own choice or by the choices of others, those dreams sometimes get taken and put down deep in a box, only to be taken out once or twice every now and again, like you do an old photo book, to have a look through it. And that's exactly what happened to me. I'd heard words like, she'll never amount to much. All she does is big note herself. She's such a chatterbox. And it was those words that took root in my mind, took those dreams, put them in the bottom of that box, and I shelved those dreams, never to see the light of day. But you know what? Visions have a way of making themselves known. They suddenly appear. Now, I don't know if you've heard of that little phrase, a journey of 1,000 steps starts what? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with just one step. Well, 18,000 miles and 3 years later, I actually remembered the story about the silver jumpsuit. And I suddenly realized that that dream of mine to inspire people, to encourage people, to ignite their courage, to help them to take inspired action so that they could fulfill and realize their full potential as business people, in life, or as an entrepreneur. That was what I was meant to be doing. And so today, as an entrepreneur, that is what I love to do best. I've listened to my heart. I write books, and I'd love to be able to give one or two of you, or even a few of you, a book if you'd really like to read the story of, me coming to South Africa, which is quite traumatic, and I'd love you to have this, so I'll pass them down when I finish over here. But the fact is, right, I've held on to that dream, and it's taken me almost 10 years to realize the dream that I once had when I was a 10-year-old little girl. So today I want to leave you with 3 points, okay? 3 things, as my husband says, to turbocharge your vision. And the first thing is, all right, the first thing that I really and truly want you to remember at any given time is to have a spirit of excellence. Now, this idea of a spirit of excellence actually comes from a phrase which I heard many years ago just after arriving in Australia. I met a woman at a retreat, and she said to me, "Brenda, how you do anything is how you do everything." And I thought, oh my goodness, what does that mean? What does that mean? But I've realized that when we look at our lives, right, how we choose to do one thing is generally how we will do everything. So I want to encourage you today that when you do something, to throw your heart and your soul into it, every single little bit of it. Because when you do throw your heart and your soul into it, excellence is the result. So please remember, take that phrase the way I did, make it part of your life, and remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. My second point is obviously the power of association. Choose who you mix with. Not every person, all right, has your best interests at heart. Not every person has the dreams that you have for your life. Not every person wants for you what you want for you. And sometimes people will squish your dream, but sometimes they will build you up. Ask yourself, how do I feel when I hang around with these specific people? Do they make me feel good about myself, or do they make me feel sick? If they make you feel sick, it's time for you to move from that association. People will either lift you up or they will keep you down. You choose whether you want to stay in that association or not. The fact is, we all mix with people every single day. When we mix with like-minded people, like you guys, like the ones that you're around now, we tend to rise together. If you ever find yourself networking in a group, mixing with people, and you happen to be the cleverest or the smartest person in that room, you are probably not stretching yourself. You are probably just in your comfort zone. Can I encourage you to find yourself another group? A group where you are the person who probably knows the least. Yes, you will be challenged. It will feel uncomfortable in the beginning. But you know what? Eventually, you will learn to grow and you will become a stronger, better version of yourself. You will stretch and expand your own comfort zone. Choose your friends wisely. And that brings me to my third point, and the one that I love the most. And that is something that I've seen displayed here on the stage with every single one of the people who I've watched tonight, and that is to be yourself. I don't know if you've watched The Lion King. Anybody here watched The Lion King? One of my all-time favorite movies. And over the past 2 weeks, while it's been showing, I've gone to go and watch that movie. Probably watched it more than once in any case, but I love this latest edition of it. Now, for those of you who don't know the story, I'll just give you just a little snapshot of it, okay? It's about a little lion called Simba, and he has these amazing big dreams for his life. He knows that he has a vision and a purpose to fulfill, right? He knows who he is, and he knows who he is to become. His dad, Mufasa, takes him out to the edge of I think it's called Pride Rock, stands on the edge, and he shows him the kingdom that is about to belong to him. And Simba grows up, but as life has it, things don't always work out the way it should. And so he runs off, He leaves the Pride Lands and he grows up, forgetting who he is and forgetting what he is capable of or who he is to become, until the day he runs into his lifelong friend, Nala. And suddenly he remembers who he is and who he is to become, and he goes back to the Pride Lands to take his specific place. Now, each and every single one of you, all right, have that vision inside of you, and it is up to you to be able to realize that. You were all created unique. And I want you to turn around now to your neighbor, if you still have one. Turn around to them and say, you are unique. Awesome, awesome. And you are unique. You are 1 in a million. Did you know that you're a winner tonight? Did you know that the night that you were conceived, you had a fight, you had a fight against 4 million other little sperms to be able to get to who you are today. So you are a miracle. And if you're too young, and this was a bit X-rated, don't worry about it. You should be learning about this in school right now. But the fact is, you are 1 in a million, all right? You were born for greatness. And I want to remind you tonight, right, to go and revisit that vision of yours. I want you in the next week or so to find a quiet spot at home, to sit back, close your eyes, and look into your heart, not with your eyes, look into your heart to see what your future holds. Our eyes tell us what is, but it is our heart that tells us what can be. So as I leave you tonight, I just want to leave you with this one thought, to remember who you are. And I know my daughters who are sitting here tonight will probably cringe at this, because I said to them, I'm going to say this in the voice of Simba's father, Mufasa, and I'm going to tell you this. Simba, remember who you are. And that's it. I want you to remember who you are. Go out there, dream big dreams, not with your eyes, but with your heart. Thank you.
If you don't have your passion yet, please don't panic. It will come along, and as we've heard tonight, sometimes it's the horse riding or the yoga, and it's not actually your vocation, but one day it may be. Thank you to everyone, to all the schools, the councils, the students, the support crews, TAFE, UniTAS, the employment supports, White Ribbon, and the many speakers tonight, the chefs, table hosts, and you, the bright young stars of Tasmania's future. So give yourself a big round of applause. Thank you so much for participating this evening. Please take the time to fill out this survey. It will help to plan future events. On behalf of the Examiner and the Advocate newspapers who proudly support this event, I wish you all a good night. I know some people are travelling far, so please take it easy on the roads and arrive home safely, and we hope to see you all next year.